Chapter 2348. The blue sky was cool and slightly bleak. The streets were deserted. Because of the battle between kings, the scope of the battle was too large. The order of the city had already collapsed. Those who could run had already run away. Even those who couldn't run stayed at home and refused to come out. However, there were some unavoidable exceptions to everything. Many unknown people wearing helmets started a large-scale operation and moved forward in an orderly manner. Don't waste time. Hurry up. A large number of members of the Green Clan kept approaching Dustless's villa. They were all holding all kinds of weapons, such as dangerous guns, knives, and so on. We must kill that guy this time. Wuxia Hisashi waved his small hands excitedly. Due to his excessive joy, his expression was even a little morbid. The leader of this group was naturally the leader of the Green Clan, the Green King Bai Shui. However, due to his physical condition, he was pushed over in a wheelchair. The Green King was originally a dying man. However, at the moment of his death, he obtained the power of a king. That was how he managed to survive until today. Don't be careless. That guy isn't weak. Bai Shui wasn't as calm as he said cautiously. Perhaps Dustless is right. His power doesn't come from the Drexton stone plate. It's a power that we haven't come into contact with before. However, it does exist. Impossible. If that's the case, isn't that guy too shocking? The coiling boat Sky Rooster frowned and touched his chin. He had some doubts in his heart. If that was the case, Dustless was really a heretic among heretics. Since you understand this situation, you should know that the unknown is often the most dangerous. However, why do you still want to fight me now? You're just seeking your own death. A ripple that could be seen with the naked eye suddenly swept across the endless sky. It spread out like a wave. This voice also entered everyone's ears. It's just for my dream. Bai Shuelio's expression changed slightly as he stared at the dancing lights in the sky. They were like countless golden fireflies circling around. He said solemnly, "Be careful, this guy is coming." Buzz, buzz, buzz. The large number of flashes of light accelerated and condensed. Finally, Dustless's body appeared one by one from head to toe. His cold eyes were like a god looking down on mortals, without the slightest hint of emotion. How arrogant. Looking up at Dustless in the sky, many people's faces changed. That provocative gaze was like a god looking down on an ant. There was no extra emotion in it, only naked and direct disdain. So strong. No wonder Z and Sujio were defeated by him. Bai Shuelio's face was tense. Even though Dustless was quietly looking at him, and there was no aura directed at him, he still felt as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. Beads of sweat even appeared on his forehead. You brat, don't be too arrogant. Our king is here, and you still dare to look down on us. Su Kujio, who was standing next to Bishui Shuelu, was furious. He looked up at the sky. Everyone pay attention. Shoot down that annoying bug in the sky. That guy's head is worth 100,000 points. Kill him. Hahaha, this kid is mine. 100,000 points? Doesn't that mean that if we kill him, we can instantly become an officer of the clan? It's not as simple as becoming an officer. 10 points is far more than what is needed to become an officer. Hearing this, the members of the Green Clan were extremely excited. Their eyes were greedily looking at Dustless in the sky. Everyone felt their blood boiling. Their lives had never been so exciting before. Bang, bang, bang. Countless bullets blasted into the sky, and the sound of the explosion rang in Dustless's ears. His body was blown apart in a short time, but it was quickly repaired by the elemental conversion of the glint fruit. This is not a place for you to be impudent. Dustless glanced at Su Kujio, who was laughing. With a flick of his finger, a huge beam of light pierced through the sky and fell from the sky. Laser. The bright beam of light was like a meteor, leaving a straight trail in the sky. Under the gaze of countless people, it rushed towards Su Kujio. Not good, quickly dodge. Seeing this, the Green King's heart trembled. He hurriedly shouted at Su Kujio, but it was too late. In front of the light, everything was too weak. Pucci. Under the gaze of countless people, the beam of light pierced through Su Kujio's head, leaving a fist-sized hole in between his eyebrows. Those with good eyesight could even see the brain matter in Su Kujio's head. Gulp. Damn it, are you kidding me? Our officer was killed in an instant? Is this guy even human? He's a super monster. Many people were scared out of their wits. Even their officers couldn't withstand a single blow, let alone them. They were probably cannon fodder. Run. It was also unknown who screamed out in fear, and directly threw down the weapon in his hand and fled for his life. Dustless was really too powerful. This kind of shocking power was simply not what they could contend against and deal with. Some people were afraid and ran away. After a start, some people whose confidence had been crushed followed suit. They frantically ran for their lives like locusts. The previously aggressive army instantly collapsed. A bunch of useless good-for-nothings. When the coiling boat Sky Rooster saw this, he cursed out loud. He didn't even care about Kojio Haruna's death. A special flintlock suddenly appeared in his hand, and he fired a few shots toward Wuxia in the sky. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2349. Bang, 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 bang. The dense bullets pierced through Wu Chen's body, but it didn't have any effect at all. It was as if he was transparent and didn't hurt him at all. All the bullets pierced through Wu Chen and floated to the distant sky. Damn it, monster. Seeing this, many people cursed out loud. This unbelievable ability could make him immune to physical attacks. And it seemed that any attacks aimed at him were ineffective. How could they defeat such an enemy? Let's run. Our clan has offended such a powerful person. We're done for. Many members of the Green Clan who were hiding whispered to themselves. They all looked at the Green King by Shuelu. This high and mighty king was also sweating profusely. He looked at Dustless as if he was facing a great enemy. Come at me all at once. Don't waste my time. In front of Bai Shuelu and others, the light condensed, and Wu Chen's handsome face appeared first, followed by his abdomen and legs. Sir, Bai Shuelu's mouth twitched. He pretended to be calm and asked in a low voice, I'll ask you one last time. Are you willing to release the power of the Drexten stone plate? If you release it, we can forget about the past and be friends. It's not good for you. Be friends? Are you worthy? Get out. Before he could continue, Dustless looked at Bai Shuelu mockingly. His words made Bai Shuelu change his mind. I've always been amenable to persuasion but not coercion. Perhaps when I'm bored in the future and feel that life is boring, I might really release the power of the Drexten stone plate to change the human race. Perhaps my boring days might become a little more interesting. But you people actually dared to threaten me. I've changed my mind now. Even if I'm addicted to that broken stone plate, I won't release its power. You're provoking me. Bai Shuelyo's face turned green. This guy was too arrogant. He didn't take him seriously at all. This is not a provocation. Dustless suddenly raised his right foot. A bright light shone, and then he stomped it down. This is pure oppression. Boom, boom, boom. The solid ground was crushed by Dustless's stomp like glass. Countless cracks appeared and spread in all directions, trying to swallow Bai Shuelu and the others. Retreat! Yu Xiao, Shenzi, and the others quickly retreated, looking at Dustless in panic. What kind of monster was this guy? One kick was enough to cause an earthquake. Idiot, you still want to run? Dustless revealed a contemptuous smile. Large amounts of light drifted out of his body and disappeared as if he was shuttling through space. Looks like I can only use my full strength to deal with this. On the other side, Bai Shuelu sucked in a deep breath of cold air. He suddenly stood up from his wheelchair and ordered loudly, Violet, leave this place to me. Hurry up and find the Drexten stone plate. Once we get it, we'll... Poochie. Before Bai Shuelu could finish his sentence, he felt a sharp pain in his abdomen. His blood was gushing out, and a terrifying heat was roasting his body. This is... Why did I die just like that? Bai Shuelu lowered his head to look at his abdomen. A blazing laser sword had pierced through his abdomen, quickly evaporating his life force. Bai Shuelu could clearly feel an unprecedented sense of exhaustion spreading throughout his body, and his eyes could not help but close. Because you are too weak, Dustless coldly replied. I can't accept this. At this moment, Baishuelio's face was ferocious. He had never felt that death was so terrifying. His eyes that were about to close suddenly opened. His eyes were bloodshot. Boom boom boom. Endless emerald light rose from Baishuelio's body. It was like a scorching flame, and anything that came close to Baishuelu would be burned to ashes. Even the Kusanagi sword that was stabbed into his abdomen trembled slightly, and began to peel off layer by layer. Still want to struggle? Dustless shook his head, and immediately focused his gaze on Baishuelu. His calm eyes blinked slightly. Amaterasu. Boom boom boom. The dark evil fire suddenly descended without any warning, and instantly swallowed Baishuelio's body. The emerald light was also rapidly evaporated by Amaterasu. Ah! Being tortured inhumanely by Amaterasu, Baishuelu suddenly let out a painful groan. Those who heard it had a look of fear on their faces. It was as if they could empathize with him, and their bodies could not help but tremble. Shuelu. Both Coiling Boat Sky Rooster and Yushao Shensi roared. Their king was burned alive like this, and he didn't even have the ability to fight back. The blow to the women was really too big. Kneel down and beg for mercy. I can let you go once. Dustless was expressionless. Although the conditions were extremely harsh, it was rare for him to be magnanimous. Kowtowing and begging for mercy can be exchanged for a life, which is not a loss. In your dreams. Coiling Boat Sky Rooster roared madly, and immediately launched the power of the king. A hazy fog suddenly descended, and the visibility was greatly reduced. In this fog, it was impossible to distinguish the basic direction, and they didn't know from which direction the enemy would attack from. In the original work, when the King of Blue fought with the Coiling Boat Sky Rooster, he was seriously injured because of this fog, and he was in danger. Whiz whiz whiz. The special energy drifted away. It was very weak and almost undetectable, but it really existed. It was extremely mysterious. Only Dustless could feel the changes within. The originally boundless world became incomparably clear in an instant. Observation hockey is really a good thing. Dustless's mouth curled into a smile, and his eyes suddenly turned. Even though the scenery in his eyes was only gray, through the perception of observation hockey, he clearly noticed that Coiling Boat Sky Rooster was standing there, intending to sneak attack. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more, 3,000 rewards plus more, 1,000 evaluation votes plus more, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more. Chapter 2350. He shouldn't have noticed me. The Coiling Boat Sky Rooster was hidden in the gray mist. His eyes were like the eyes of an eagle, revealing a cold light. He gritted his teeth and said, "Lu, don't worry. Your sacrifice will not be in vain. I will avenge you." Although the Coiling Boat Sky Rooster was the King of Gray, he had defected to the King of Green. The two of them were very close. They had been friends for several years. In the Green clan, the King of Gray was like a father figure to the Coiling Boat Sky Rooster. Now his child was being tortured to death. How could he bear it? Bang, bang, bang. In anger, the King of Gray aimed at Dustless's head and pulled the trigger. Swoosh, swoosh. The huge bullet pierced through the fog and went straight for Dustless's head. Even though he couldn't see clearly, the Coiling Boat Sky Rooster knew that there were two big holes in Dustless's head. He quickly ran over with joy. "Ha ha ha, you bastard, you're dead. You." The moment the laughing Coiling Boat Sky Rooster saw Dustless, his cheeks froze and his smile stopped abruptly. He saw Dustless fall to the ground and his breath completely disappeared. Dead, dead, finally dead. The Coiling Boat Sky Rooster's eyes shot out scarlet light. He was very excited. He thought that Dustless could still be repaired. Who knew that he was dead? Is he really dead? The Coiling Boat Sky Rooster approached Dustless carefully. After noticing the two holes in his head, and the fact that he had completely stopped breathing, the Coiling Boat Sky Rooster burst into tears. "Lu, close your eyes in peace. I have already killed this bastard and avenged you." The Coiling Boat Sky Rooster was extremely excited. Even his rough old face was flushed red. Laser. At this moment, a ray of bright golden light pierced through the thick fog and shot straight at the Coiling Boat Sky Rooster's heart. Who is it? The Coiling Boat Sky Rooster wasn't an ordinary person. After all, He was a powerful king. He immediately turned his head to dodge, but it was too late. The coasting boat Sky Pheasant's heart was burned by the light beam, leaving behind a charred hole. One could clearly see the scene on the other side. What's going on? Isn't that guy dead? When the coiling boat Sky Rooster saw Dustless walking out of the fog, his two huge old eyes froze. What's going on? Why aren't you dead? What the hell? The person who had ambushed him from behind was none other than Dustless, who had his hands in his pockets and walked over casually. Die. Dustless grinned and mocked. In terms of strength, I am thousands of times stronger than you. Do you think I will be killed by you? What the hell is that? Ignoring the piercing pain in his chest, the coiling boat Sky Rooster pointed at the corpse beside his feet and looked at the smiling Dustless. He was so angry that blood was spurting out. He felt like a clown being played by Dustless without restraint. His lungs were about to explode from anger. Don't be so agitated. I was just being kind. Seeing that you are already so old, and it's not easy for you to live, I let my shadow clone be killed by you. This way, you can die without any regrets. Do you have any regrets now? Dustless said very kindly. He then muttered to himself, I take care of the elderly so well. You should really give me an award for being the best citizen. It would have been better if he hadn't said it. After hearing Dustless's words, the coiling boat Sky Rooster vomited blood again. You are the best citizen? Then the murderers locked up in prison are all gentle angels. I won't let you off even if I become a ghost. Glaring at Dustless with resentment, the coiling boat Sky Rooster fell to the ground with a bang. His breath had completely disappeared, but his eyes were still open. At the same time, the gray fog that occupied the blue sky also disappeared. Warm sunlight shone down from the vast sky once again. You are the only one left. Dustless looked at Yu Shensi without any ripples in his eyes and asked flatly, Yu Shensi, do you want to commit suicide or do you want me to do it? Yu Shensi looked at Dustless coldly. Her eyes were as cold as ice. Looks like I need to do it. Dustless looked at Yu Shensi calmly. From this fellow's eyes, there was only one special emotion, to stand to the end. Come. Dustless beckoned with his finger. There was a faint arc on his face. Clang clang clang. Yu Shensi didn't waste any time. She immediately drew her tachi from its scabbard and looked at Dustless coldly. Then, she turned into a hurricane and dashed over in a flash. Die. In the blink of an eye, Yu Shensi arrived in front of Dustless. Her long blade slashed down horizontally, wanting to chop off Dustless's head. Child's play. Wuchen was as calm as still water. He gently raised his right arm and directly grabbed the dangerous tachi that was coming at him. Boom boom boom. A crisp sound echoed across the sky. The tachi's invincible edge was blocked. Dustless casually caught Yu Shensi's large blade with both hands. His face was expressionless, without the slightest pressure. Is this the difference between you and me? Yu Shensi stared at Dustless. Or rather, those two fingers were gently holding her weapon. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pull it out. I'll let you die a luxurious death. Dustless chose to ignore those beast-like eyes. The chakra in his body surged, and a black sphere formed in an instant. He flicked it out. Truth-seeking jade. Boom boom boom. The seemingly harmless body suddenly showed its ferocious side the moment it hit Yu Shensi. Although there were no wounds on his body, the layers of skin were strangely peeling off. Yu Shensi was like a broken porcelain person. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into thin air. Not even her corpse was left behind. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2351. Time flew by and 3 days passed unknowingly. During this period, Dustless arranged everything and completed all the trivial matters that needed to be settled before leaving. As for the resurrected Silver King, his memory was completely sealed by Dustless. In the future, his identity would be the Azana Society, and he would live an ordinary life. When they heard that Dustless was leaving, Cat and Sin Dustless had different attitudes. Fortunately, Dustless did not force them and allowed them to choose. Cat was naturally willing to leave with Dustless. She had nothing to miss anyway. As for Tsunana, I figured it out. The Venerable One has passed away, and Mio and Izumo have left Japan. Tsunana's eyes could not help but darken when she said this. The Great Vega Balla was disbanded just like that. I'll go with you to relax. Tsunana looked at Dustless firmly. I told you before, right? It's not relaxing. Once you leave, you can't come back. Dustless was rarely serious. Don't think I'm joking. I'm serious, girl. But I don't have any relatives. Tsunana lowered her head. Her despondent look was really pitiful. Well, remember, this is your own choice. I didn't force you. It's useless to regret it in the future. Dustless looked at Tsunana for a moment, and did not ask any more. After all, he did not force her. When everything was ready, Dustless took Tsunana and Cat into the system world. Since then, the era of the king's rule had completely ended, and mankind had begun to enter a new era of development. The traces of Dustless and the others' existence were all erased by Japan, becoming the biggest mystery in history. In the system world, in the blue sky, white clouds floated lazily. It was very happy. The world with beautiful scenery was always so stable compared to the outside world. It was always carefree, without any pain or loss. This was a new world. There was no distinction between friend and foe. Even a vicious criminal would become a good person if he continued to live such a comfortable life. Looks like it's settled. Wu Chen stared at Sinming Anna and the cat who were playing on the lawn in the distance. They were unusually harmonious and got along well with other confidants. Seeing this scene, Wu Chen couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. He threw aside the grass in his mouth and got into the black hole next to him with peace of mind. This was the spatial tunnel that had been prepared beforehand. Gulp. After the black hole swallowed Dustless, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. Soon peace was restored. This was a special world. Due to a sudden accident, most of the humans had gone extinct, and the city had been reduced to ruins. The humans who were lucky enough to survive also fell into a nightmare. They were kept in captivity by a group of powerful races, and became delicious food. In short, this was a world ruled by vampires and human civilization had been destroyed. Plop. A pitch-black figure fell from the sky, smashing through the thick walls and invading an unknown room. Unfortunately, it fell into a pool. F***CK. Is he possessed by the god of misfortune? Why am I so unlucky every time? Dustless stood up in a daze and cursed. He had a splitting headache. It seemed that every time he transmigrated, he would encounter this kind of problem. It was really miserable. What the hell is this place? It looks very luxurious. Dustless looked at the surrounding buildings in a daze. This was obviously an indoor giant pool. There were many gems inlaid around it. It was brightly lit. At first glance, it was obvious that it was for nobles. Good, very good, human. How dare you invade when I'm bathing? Suddenly, a cold female voice came from behind. It was quite pleasant to the ears and was very majestic. Without looking back, he knew that the person behind it was either rich or noble. Who are you? The moment he turned his head, Dustless couldn't help but be stunned. What entered his eyes was a pink-haired lowly girl. She had gem-like blood-red eyes, and her facial features were also white without any impurities. She had a kind of paleness that belonged only to vampires. Her aura was also abnormally powerful. She was like a high and mighty queen. This chick, I seem to have some impression. Dustless frowned and thought hard. Suddenly, a strange girl appeared in his mind. He smiled and asked with interest, "You're called Cleary Sapesai? You know me?" This time, a wisp of surprise flashed past the young girl's cold appearance. After that, she looked at Wu Chen, who had a curious expression, and snorted coldly. "A country bumpkin like you, a country bumpkin, has also heard of me. Should I feel happy? After all, even a nameless junior like you knows about my reputation. This means that I'm still very famous. No, to be able to make me remember you. This is the blessing of 8 lifetimes, little brat." Dustless said calmly, but he didn't expect this sentence to make Krulu Sapesai choke with anger. "My blessing? There's a little brat?" Krulusapesai's head was dizzy and she couldn't help but feel a little dazed. As the queen of vampires, her identity and status were unparalleled. Although she looked very young and immature, that was only on the surface. Her real age was probably in the triple digits or even older. No one dared to call her a little brat. Now that a mere human called her a little brat, it was like giving Krulusapesai a slap in the face. Human, I'll make you regret living in this world. Without saying a word, Krulusapesai's small body flashed over. Her speed was as fast as lightning, and ordinary humans couldn't see her at all. Too slow. Dustless shook his head slightly. This speed was simply as slow as a turtle crawling to her. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2352. Too slow. Dustless's voice wasn't very loud, but it wasn't very soft either. Unfortunately, Krulusapeasy happened to hear it. Her delicate little face suddenly flashed with a cold light. Where did you get the courage to say that? Krulu's petite body suddenly exploded with an overwhelming power. Her speed increased several times in an instant, and she almost arrived in front of Dustless in the blink of an eye. Dustless's eyes were still staring ahead, as if he hadn't reacted yet. Mere human, you can't even withstand a single blow. Krulu smiled disdainfully and punched Dustless's abdomen without hesitation. Bang! Following the loud sound, Krulu felt the hardness of her hand, and her arrogant face finally couldn't hold it any longer. Are you tickling me? Dustless looked at Krulu indifferently and grabbed Krulu's arm roughly. If you want to hit someone, you should use your full strength like this. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless suddenly threw Krulu away. Boom boom boom. Dustless's attack was too strong. Krulu, who was thrown away, couldn't stop her body at all. She smashed heavily against the wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face was as pale as paper, and her eyes were wide open. She looked at Dustless in horror. Stand up. I know you're the queen of vampires, an out-and-out aristocrat. That was just a small problem for you. Dustless leisurely walked to Krulu's throne and sat down calmly. He supported his chin with his hand and quietly looked at the stunned girl. Who the hell are you? Just as Dustless said, Krulu stood up again. She was completely fine, and her tone was still full of majesty. Pay attention to your attitude when you speak. Dustless coldly glanced at Krulu and said with contempt, If you want to become a pile of rotten meat, I can fulfill your wish. You. Krulu's face turned pale. As the queen of vampires, who dared to talk to her like that? Even upper-class vampires, who were also aristocrats, were very respectful when they saw her. Now that she was being looked down upon by a human, Krulu was so angry that her delicate body trembled. Emperor Ghost Army? I don't think so. I've never heard of such a person. Who are they? Krulu's expression kept changing. She bit her thin lips so hard that she didn't realize that blood was flowing out. This world is really unpleasant. It's so foul. Wu Qin took a deep breath and felt that his chest was inexplicably suffocated. Full of openings. Her eyes and her eyes. Her body flashed again, and fiercely pounced on Dustless fiercely, and her strength. Her strength increased strength. SS. She's stronger. S. T. T. E. T. 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 To his. T. 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 TSK tisk. A sinister smile came from behind. Dustless turned his head slightly, and casually glanced at Krulu. No wonder the humans were defeated by you. Although they're a little stupid, but you vampires are really an outstanding race. You're too strong for humans, especially nobles like you. The person hugging Dustless's head was Krulu. At this time, she revealed 2 sharp teeth, and her dark red eyes were cold. You're still so calm when you're about to die. Human as a mere livestock, you've really impressed me. Krulu hugged Dustless's head, and impatiently licked his white neck. You're such a strong human, your blood must be good. As soon as she finished speaking, Krulu bit Dustless's neck. Human blood was a great delicacy for vampires. But the moment she bit down, Krulu was stunned. Caw caw caw. Her sharp teeth, which could bite through steel, shattered like porcelain when she bit Dustless's neck. What's going on? Krulu looked at Dustless as if she saw a ghost. She saw the man's calm eyes and felt an inexplicable panic. She quickly let go of Dustless's head and immediately stepped back. Why don't you want to taste my blood? Looking at Krulu's broken teeth, Dustless smiled and said, maybe it's a great tonic for vampires like you. Who exactly are you? Krulu's expression was extremely depressed. Looking at Dustless's teasing smile, she finally understood that this guy was just teasing her from the beginning. It was more like he was killing time. My name is Dustless. Dustless simply introduced himself, and then the sudden sentence almost made Krulu faint. From now on, I'm your master. Come, call me master, my pet. My master. Krulu glared at him and gritted her teeth. A mere human wanted to be her master. How arrogant was he? If other nobles knew about this, where would she put her face? You don't deserve it. Kalulu coldly refused. The way he looked at Wu Chun was as if he was looking at an enemy who had killed his father. That's simple. Dustless suddenly stood up from the throne, and his cold voice resounded throughout the palace. Then I don't mind being a good person for once. Slaughtering the vampires will purify the world. What do you think, little brat? After saying that, Dustless's mouth showed a trace of an evil smile. It looked harmless, but in Kalula's eyes his body couldn't help but feel cold. He couldn't help but have an absurd thought in his mind. If you want to do it, it can really be done. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Oh. Chapter 2353. Krulu took a deep breath and suppressed the waves in his heart. He looked at Dustless with sparkling eyes, trying to see through this guy. Who the hell are you? Looking at Dustless with uncertainty, Krulu couldn't see through this person's origin. He didn't even know if he was a human or a vampire. If he was a human, how could there be such a strong human? At least Krulu hadn't seen one before. My name is Dustless. Dustless said calmly and then added, of course, I'm also your owner. You're my livestock from now on. You. Hearing this, Krulu's heart was in turmoil and he almost spat out blood. He looked at Dustless unkindly and asked coldly, do you know who I am? I'm not interested. Dustless was unmoved. I'm the queen of the vampires, the third ancestor. Krulu raised his voice and his pretty face regained its color. He looked quite proud. Is that so? Dustless showed a surprised expression, then looked at Krulu with satisfaction and said with a smile, that's good. My livestock status is so high you won't embarrass me. You bastard, go to hell. Hearing this, Krulu was completely driven mad. He randomly picked up something and threw it over. Why is this kid asking for a beating? Embarrass you? Who do you think you are? Was he a god? Angel? Kalulu only felt that his head was about to explode. It was all because of Dustless. You're an ungrateful creature. Dustless slightly squinted his eyes. The place where his eyes looked seemed to be burning with flames. It was extremely terrifying. The moment Dustless squinted his eyes, Krulu's chest suddenly felt inexplicably heavy. He looked up and felt like he was being stared at by a prehistoric monster that could tear him apart at any time. Do you want to obtain this world? Dustless suddenly asked. I mean, to become the master of this world, the only master in the world. Do you think I'm a child? How could such a thing be possible? Kalulu laughed disdainfully, as if he were a child. Impossible? Before I appeared, it was indeed impossible, but now that I have appeared, this world has a master. Dustless continued to speak calmly, his tone as calm as an ancient well. That's right. From the moment I appeared, this world followed my surname. Humph. Shameless. Hearing this, Kululu only snorted in disdain, as if mocking Dustless for overestimating himself. Tefe, you're still not convinced? Dustless looked at Klulu with interest and a mischievous smile. You'll believe me in the future. Now let's get down to business. Don't try to fool me. Hurry up and call me master. In your dreams. Krulu was so angry that her face was trembling. This guy was too arrogant. She was the queen of the vampires, yet she called Dustless master. How was she going to continue living like this? Is that so? Dustless was not angry. He said casually, then it's very simple. I'll strip you naked, tie you up and throw you to the humans. What do you think will happen? You? Do you have to be so shameless? Krula's expression changed drastically. A rare look of fear appeared on her face. She glared at Dustless and scolded. Don't you have the demeanor of a strong person? How dare you lay your hands on a girl? You're still a girl. Hearing this, Dustless was speechless. He rolled his eyes and said, a girl with sharp teeth who wants to drink my blood is too annoying. Let's cut the crap. Are you going to call me master or not? We'll see. Hearing this, Krula did not say anything else. She turned into a black shadow and ran for her life, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Brat, you still want to run away in front of me? Dustless's big hand suddenly grabbed, as if he had expected Krulu to run for her life. 10,000 heavenly attraction. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly, a terrifying gravitational force came from behind. Krula's speed instantly slowed down, and her body kept moving backward. Damn monster. Feeling that the space around her was distorted, Krulu scolded. It was always others who treated her as a monster. This time, it was her turn to call Dustless a monster. Her thoughts were especially complicated. Come here. Chakra increased its output, and the gravitational force became denser. Krulu was immediately pulled over. Still want to run? Dustless asked with a smile. My cute livestock, come and call me master. Otherwise, I will keep my promise. Gotcha. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless shot out an energy wave from his finger. It blasted on Krula's body, and her clothes were instantly torn into pieces. You pervert! Krula flew into a rage and cursed. She could not wait to tear Dustless apart. Dustless was not angry. He calmly faced the angry Krulu and said with a smile, Ah, since you have rejected, I will not be so sentimental. I will send you to the humans now. I heard that the Emperor Ghost Army of Japan is very interested in vampire nobles, especially human experiments. Enough. Before Dustless could continue his nonsense, Krulu interrupted him loudly. Finally, she turned her head and said in an extremely soft voice, Master. The moment her voice fell, Krula's cheeks turned green with anger. As the queen of the vampire race, she actually called someone master, and was treated like a livestock. Not only did she lose face, but also the entire vampire race's face. If you had listened to me earlier, it would not have been so troublesome. After hearing his words, Wuxia kept his promise as he loosened his grip on Krulu. With his eyes closed, he muttered, Later on, you will understand how lucky you are to make such a decision. The simple word master has given you the entire world. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2354. In exchange for the whole world. Krulu looked at Dustless with a complicated expression. Would this guy die if he kept a low profile? Didn't he know that it would hurt to be slapped in the face after his lie was exposed? Buzz, buzz, buzz. Suddenly, a large number of ripples appeared in the void, followed by a bottle of red wine and a golden wine glass that fell into Krula's hands. The Hero King's ability is really useful. Dustless sighed. Looking at Krulu, who was in a daze, he pretended to be stern and scolded. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and pour me a drink. This guy must have worked himself to death in his previous life. He will make it up to me in this life. Krula knew that she wasn't Dustless's opponent, so she could only curse this pervert in her heart. However, even if she was unhappy, she still obeyed Dustless's order and obediently poured a glass of wine for Dustless. Gulp. Dustless gulped it down as if he was drinking cold water. He did this a few times before stopping. Noticing Dustless's sudden change in expression, Krulu, who realized that something was wrong, changed her words awkwardly. You, master, why are you looking for me? At least you know what's good for you. Dustless snorted and immediately complained. I don't have any purpose. I just fell from a height of tens of thousands of meters, and my head is still dizzy. Hearing this, Krulu almost fell down. Falling from a height of tens of thousands of meters? Why didn't you smash into meat paste? All in all, I don't plan to stay here with you vampires. To be honest, I still feel uncomfortable. As the saying goes, birds of a feather flock together. Dustless was a proper human. Although he was strong enough to kill gods, he was still a human in nature. Living with a group of vampires was really uncomfortable. At the very least, Dustless didn't have the hobby of sucking blood. This fiend wants to leave? That's great. Kalulu was overjoyed. She was afraid that Dustless would stay here. Otherwise, she might live under the shadow of Dustless for the rest of her life. Take me away. After a moment of silence, Dustless stretched. Take me to the humans. I understand. Kalulu said respectfully for the first time. He was about to send Dustless, the Jinx, away, so there was no harm in praising him temporarily. Come with me, master. Dustless followed Krula's footsteps and left as well. Many of the vampires had strange expressions on their faces when they saw the high and mighty queen hanging out with a human. However, due to the issue of identity, no one dared to ask too much. After all, Krulu was the king here, and those who dared to question him would only end up dead. On the other side, the hall was brightly lit, and the air was filled with the smell of blood. The ground was covered in blood, and there were many children's corpses. Their bodies were already cold. Of course, there were still 2 survivors. Vampire let go of Micah quickly. A child wearing clothes that belonged to livestock was holding an exquisite pistol and pointing it at the silver-haired vampire. The child's face was ferocious as she looked at the noble vampire with hatred. Aya. So scary. The silver-haired noble vampire smiled and looked at the child holding the gun with contempt. He said to the child at his feet, Little Micah, is this the family you mentioned? Little you, run quickly. The golden-haired child called Micah urged. Her face was filled with worry. This guy is a noble vampire. You are no match for him. Little you. Pft. Without waiting for Micah to continue speaking, the silver-haired noble vampire, Freed Bartley, pierced his right hand into Micah's abdomen. Blood flowed out instantly. What have you done, you bastard? I'm going to kill you. Yuichiro Hayakuya was enraged by this scene. Without hesitation, he pulled the trigger at Freed's head. Bang! Freed's head was immediately penetrated by the bullet, leaving a fist-sized hole. Micah, I'll bring you away now. Hang in there for a while. Yuichiro Hayakuya quickly ran over and wanted to help Michael up. However, he was just a child at this moment. His strength was too weak. He could only drag Michael away slowly. A glaring blood trail was left on the floor. I'm going to die. Little you can leave by yourself. Michael smiled. However, Yuichiro Hayakuya shook his head stubbornly. Little you, do you want everyone's efforts to go to waste? Run quickly. He pushed Yuichiro Hayakuya forcefully. Michael closed his eyes like a lamp that was about to run out of oil. Damned vampires, there will be a day when I'll exterminate all of you. Finally, Yuichiro Hayakuya roared and left. His tears fell like rain. He swore in his heart that he would kill all vampires in the future. Little you. Staring at the back of Yuichiro Hayakuya, Michael opened his eyes again. I seem to have come at the right time. An indifferent voice suddenly sounded. 2 figures suddenly walked out from the darkness. They were Dustless and Krulutsapizi. You bastard, how dare you? My blazing angel. Staring at Hayakuya Michael, whose life was hanging by a thread, and Hayakuya Yuichiro, who had disappeared without a trace, Krulu was enraged. Her beautiful eyes were full of devastation. Freed, don't play dead. Give me an explanation. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you die for real. Aw. Krulu, you're really cold. Just now my head was smashed by that brat. Can't you be gentler to me? Freed suddenly stood up. There was still a hole in his head. At the same time, he also noticed Dustless. He was stunned for a moment. After all, he was a human. Wouldn't it be strange for him to be with the vampire queen? However, Dustless acted as if he didn't notice Freed. He pointed at the direction where Yuichiro Hayakuya escaped and asked, Is the way out of this godforsaken place the brat ran to? That's right. Krulu nodded. She was still looking at Freed coldly. I'm not interested in your business. Leaving behind a simple sentence, Dustless brushed past Fried. The latter was immediately dumbfounded. Was there a mistake? This human had actually ignored him. Chapter 2355. It was no wonder that Fried lost his composure. In a place where vampire nobles gathered, a human like Dustless swaggered in and even ignored him. A vampire noble. Even Krolu Sapezi did not dare to be disrespectful to Dustless. How could Fried not be curious? Halt, human. Unable to suppress his curiosity, Fried suddenly blocked Dustless's path. Livestock, do you know where this is, scram reptile? Without waiting for Fried to continue his nonsense, Dustless impatiently interrupted him. Living in the same space as you blood-sucking perverts, I feel uncomfortable all over. Reptile. Hearing this, Fried's mouth twitched. With a fake smile, he looked at Dustless. My ears are not good. Can you repeat what you just said? Now there's a good show to watch. Seeing this, Krolu revealed a gloating expression. Krolu, this guy is your dog, right? Dustless suddenly looked at Krolu. Pointing at Flender, who had an ugly expression, he said indifferently, tell him to scram. What did you say? Hearing this, Fried's face turned black. A mere human dared to speak to him like this. He was simply courting death. Scram. Krolu glared at Fried. Her beautiful eyes were filled with hostility. Are you crazy? Krolu, he's a human. Fried was stunned when he heard this. A rare look of shock appeared on his handsome face. When did the vampire queen become so obedient? And a human at that. Furious, he said. You're telling me to scram for a human? Was he not even comparable to a human? Thinking of this, Fried became even more furious. Let me see what's so special about you. With a cold gaze, Fried decisively ignored Krolu's order. In any case, the two of them were not on good terms. With regards to Krolu's orders, Fried had always obeyed on the surface but disobeyed on the inside. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Fried suddenly attacked from the side. His speed was so fast that it was dazzling. Repent, you mere livestock. In the blink of an eye, Fried appeared in front of Dustless, his fist smashing towards Dustless's head. Against a human, he disdained to use his sword. Seeing this, Wuxia just raised his palm casually. Bang. Fried's punch was powerful enough to shatter a wall. After all, he was an upper-level primogenitor among vampires. His strength was extraordinary. However, Dustless was completely unaffected by Fried's punch. The effect was akin to a child punching an adult's palm. How could this be? Fried couldn't help but be shocked. Looking at Dustless, whose eyes were unreadable, a rare expression of shock appeared on his face. Although he hadn't used his full strength, he had still used around 70% to 80% of his strength. According to his calculations, Dustless should have been beaten to the ground, unable to stand up. Is this all there is to the vampire nobility? Compared to Krolu, you seem to be far behind. Dustless abruptly clenched his fist, tightly grabbing Fried's fist. He let out a sinister laugh and increased his strength slightly. Ka ka ka. Fried's fist was instantly crushed by Dustless as if he was crushing a fruit or vegetable. Bastard! Fried cursed loudly, his remaining hand immediately reaching for the long sword at his waist. My sword, drink from me, bang. Before Fried could even finish his words, Krolu had already launched a sneak attack. Krolu's small and delicate body leapt up and kicked Fried's right cheek, sending him flying. What is the meaning of this? Dustless casually glanced at Krolu beside him and asked indifferently, Don't tell me that you're being too kind. That's not it. I hate this guy more than anything. Krolu shook his head and explained, But at the end of the day, Flender is a vampire nobility and an upper-level ancestor. If he were to die here for no reason, I would have to come up with a reasonable explanation. Since you let me off this time, you shouldn't bother with a clown like Fried, right? He is indeed a clown. Dustless nodded slightly. But even if he is a clown, it is annoying to provoke me all the time. But I'll let it go this time. I can also turn a blind eye to it. If there is a next time, I guarantee that he will be chopped into pieces. I'll give you some face this time. I understand. Krolu heaved a sigh of relief. If Fried were to die just like that, She would have a hard time explaining herself. Dustless didn't say anything. He looked at Krulu quietly for a few seconds, then turned around and left without hesitation. Before he left, he glanced at the bleeding 100 Knights Michael. Krulu, remember this. You belong to me. I won't allow you to bleed for others. When these words fell into Krulu's ears, there was a subtle change in her expression. She couldn't help but raise her head and look at Wuxia in surprise. She really intended to let 100 Knights Michael drink her blood to revive. But now that Dustless said so, she had no choice but to give up. Thud, 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 thud. Then Dustless put his hands in his pockets and walked away lazily. His shoes made a crisp sound as he stepped on the floor. During this time, the vampires who didn't kill vampires also discovered that Dustless was a human. But no one dared to stop him. Damn it, Krulu. Are you crazy? Fried glared at Krulu. The veins on his forehead bulged as he roared. You joined hands with a human to deal with me? Are you trying to be a traitor? My queen. Fried, you seem to have made a mistake. Looking at Dustless's back as he left, Krulu returned to being the high and mighty vampire queen. She sneered at him and mocked. If it weren't for me, you would have been chopped into pieces. As a thank you gift for saving your life, I don't want the other ancestors to know about what happened today. Do you understand? You saved my life? Fried almost fainted from anger. I was humiliated by these two people one after another, and now I saved his life. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2356. On the other side, Dustless followed Yuichiro's footsteps out of the vampire city. Whoosh, whoosh. In the outside world, the cold wind was bleak, and snow was falling from the sky. The world in front of him was covered in snow, and the air was bone-piercing and freezing. As far as the eye could see, the surroundings were deathly silent and desolate. But it was normal. This world was ruled by vampires, and humans were either killed or reared by the vampires. Of course, there were some special existences, such as the King Ghost Army. This kid's stamina is pretty good. Wearing such thin clothes and barefoot, he can run so far in the snow. His perseverance is really embarrassing. After walking for a long time, Dustless finally saw Yuichiro lying in the snow. He fainted in the snow, but his eyes were blurred, and he stared blankly at Dustless. Hatred brought you here, didn't it? Dustless lowered his head and looked at the young man. He could see the anger in his deep eyes. He was sure that once Yuichiro Hayakuya became stronger in the future, he would never let the vampires go easily. He would definitely fulfill his promise and kill the vampires until there was no one left. Oh, Red Lotus, come and see. What a surprise, there is a living person here. It looks like a kid, and there is an adult beside him. I'm sure he is not a vampire. The dead silence was broken by a sudden exclamation. Then, Dustless saw a few young men in the King Ghost Army's uniform appear. They seemed to have a tacit understanding. Even when they were walking, they were in a special formation, guarding against any possible danger. Red Lotus Ikanes? Dustless looked up at the short-haired young man in the front, and a meaningful smile appeared on his face. Was it a coincidence that this guy was here? Definitely not. Save me. Seeing the appearance of living people, Yuichiro Hayakuya suddenly got the strength to stand up and shout at the Emperor Ghost Army that was rushing over. Quickly put some clothes on this brat. His body is stiff, but he can still jump up. His vitality is really strong. It's a miracle that he can survive until now in such a cold environment. But it's also thanks to us that we came at the right time. Ike's Red Lotus's teammates looked at Yuichiro Hayakuya in surprise. They even ignored Dustless. Just in time. Hearing this, Dustless smiled but didn't say anything. If this was all a coincidence, then what about everything that happened before? Hayakuya Michael stole the escape blueprint from Fried. Later, when Fried found out, he killed the group of children. Hayakuya Michael and Hayakuya Yuichiro's teammates were all mercilessly killed. It was worth mentioning that Fried had purposely let Yuichiro Hayakuya escape in the end. In fact, he was not killed by the pistol. He He was merely creating an opportunity for Yuichiro Hayakuya to escape. From the beginning to the end, it had been a huge conspiracy. But at that moment, Akemi Ikane suddenly appeared. Could this be a coincidence? How sad. Humans and vampires are mortal enemies, and one of them is destined to die. Yet some people are still flirting with the vampires, secretly collaborating with them. Human nature is really ugly. Dustless sighed with emotion. Traitors were the most annoying and disgusting. However, he was too lazy to talk nonsense. Did all this have anything to do with Dustless? Whoever died had nothing to do with him. Humans and vampires were not good things. In the end, it was all the fault of humans. Without those horrible human experiments, human civilization would not have been destroyed. Who are you? While Dustless was silent, Akemi Ikane suddenly walked over. Although she hid it very well, Dustless could see the shock in her eyes. She seemed to be very surprised, as if this was not part of her plan. Me. Dustless pursed his lips and smiled. He pointed at Yuichiro and said, I escaped from that place with him. It was really scary. Hearing this, the frowns on Ike Sakura and her teammates' faces deepened. Although Dustless had verbally threatened to scare them, he did not show any signs of fear on his face. Instead, he gave off the impression that he was taking a leisurely stroll in the afternoon. Moreover, it was worth mentioning that the third ancestor, Klulu, and the seventh ancestor, Flender, were all children. Although Dustless was not old, he was obviously older than the children. Could he be a spy for the vampires? Akemi Ikane and her teammates exchanged glances. They looked at Dustless warily. How funny. You are the one who is flirting with vampires. Now you are looking at me with such vigilant eyes. Dustless's eyes were filled with disdain. As a transmigrator, Chun Xiaolian understood that there was an inextricable relationship between Ikane Sakuran and Krulu. Even Akiran's deceased girlfriend, the one who developed the ghost curse equipment, had a cooperative relationship with Krulu. Thus, Dustless was particularly disgusted by the way Akemi Ikane looked at him, suspecting that he was a spy. Was this not a case of a thief pretending to be a thief? Too shameless. Hurry up and catch up to them. Don't let those two escape. Otherwise, we are done for. Damn it. How did those two livestock researchers get out of there? Why didn't we notice them? Enough with the nonsense. Hurry up and catch them. They are just humans. Once we catch them, we will kill them all. Suddenly, the vampires' curses could be heard from behind them. 5 to 6 figures could be clearly seen charging toward them. Clearly, they were chasing after Dustless and Yuichiro. I will kill you all to prove my innocence. Dustless suddenly turned around. The corners of his mouth curled up into a cold arc. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2357. Attention, everyone. Stay in formation. Noticing the appearance of the vampires, Akemi and the others were on high alert. They unsheathed their ghost curse equipment, giving off a deadly aura. Brat, what are you waiting for? Come over here if you don't want to die. Noticing that Yuichiro was still in a daze, Akemi hurriedly scolded him. She scolded him in her heart. This kid is so stupid. If you weren't valuable, no one would save you. On the other hand, Dustless was ignored and became the target of public criticism. You're just a mere livestock. How dare you run away? You deserve to die. The incoming vampires also saw Ike's Hanrin, Dustless and the others. The livestock uniform on Yuichiro Hayakuya's body was particularly eye-catching. The group of vampires was immediately able to recognize him. However, sensing the presence of the King Ghost Army, the group of vampires did not dare to act rashly. They stared at each other like tigers watching their prey. Let's get rid of this kid first. When the vampires realized that the King Ghost Army had no intention of protecting Dustless, they glared at him fiercely. Especially when they saw that Dustless had nothing on him. He also did not have any ghost curse equipment. His skin was fair, his facial features were delicate, and his body was spotless. At first glance, they could tell that he was a pretty boy who could not even truss up a chicken. No doubt, He was the most delicious lamb. This is great. So they thought I was a pushover. Dustless helplessly scratched his head and sighed. However, in the eyes of the vampires, this was a look of fear and despair. Akemi, do you want to help? Akemi's teammates asked. Most of the humans in this world had gone extinct. Saving as many as possible was a good thing. No. Akemi's eyes were cold and emotionless. This might be the vampire's scheme. It's not like we haven't encountered such things before. Have you forgotten? When we are saving people, our formation will be disrupted, and this will give the vampires an opportunity to attack. Hearing this, everyone fell silent and chose to watch silently. As for Yuichiro, perhaps due to exhaustion, he had already fainted. Attack. A leader of the vampires ordered loudly, and the vampires who surrounded Dustless immediately besieged him from all sides. You overestimate yourself. Seeing this, Dustless sneered and pushed with both hands. Boundless gravity erupted. Shinra Tensei. Bang bang bang. The incoming vampires were hit one after another. Cracking sounds could be heard as they were attacked by the ferocious repulsive force. Everyone's bones were crushed, and their bodies flew backward like kites with broken strings. This sudden turn of events caused Ike's Hongren and her teammates to widen their eyes in disbelief. Am I seeing things? Red Lotus, this guy killed 6 or 7 vampires in seconds. Everyone stared at Dustless in shock. It was a fact that humans were inferior to vampires. In a one-on-one battle, humans could barely win. However, against 6 or 7 vampires, Dustless was still able to kill them in an instant. Either the vampires were intentionally going easy on him, or Dustless was simply too powerful. What's there to be proud of? Didn't you see those vampires stand up again? Although Red Lotus was surprised, he soon noticed that the vampires that were sent flying by Dustless stood up again. He shook his head and said, what a pity. He is also a talent. Without the ghost curse equipment, he is doomed to die. From the beginning to the end, Red Lotus had no intention of helping Dustless. In his heart, Yuichiro Hayakuya was the most important person. It was not worth risking his life for Dustless. Damned brat, I'm going to tear you to shreds. The vampires that were sent flying seemed to be completely enraged. They looked at Dustless with ferocious expressions, revealing their sharp fangs. Their scarlet eyes were filled with bloodlust. How could they not be angry after being slapped in the face by the fat sheep in their mouths? You will die today. Another vampires roared. Although they were injured, their injuries were not fatal. Only the ghost curse equipment could threaten their lives. Obviously, Dustless did not have any. Therefore, no matter what, he was bound to lose. No wonder humans lost to you. Dustless smiled and suddenly formed a hand seal. Would release. Boom boom boom. The ground trembled as if there was an earthquake. A large number of cracks appeared. The surface of the ground suddenly protruded upward. Then, under the shocked gaze of dozens of pairs of eyes, a large number of thick logs drilled out from the ground. What the hell is this? Many people were shocked by this scene. What kind of ability was this? Was there such a ghost curse equipment? At least, they had never heard of such a thing. Not to mention the vampires, even Heine's Hongren was at a loss. In her memory, there was no such ghost curse equipment. Go to hell. Dustless's expression was indifferent. He formed another hand seal. The logs turned into spears and pierced towards the vampires. Poochie, poochie, poochie. The vampires could not escape this fate. Their abdomens were all pierced. Blood kept spurting out. Even their intestines were exposed. Ha ha ha, you still can't kill us. Even though their bodies were pierced, the vampires were still full of arrogance. In this world, only ghost curse equipment can. What is going on? Soon their arrogance turned into endless fear. The vampires looked at the wood release in their abdomens in fear. They were shocked to find that the wood release was like a monster with a big mouth. It sucked their blood dry. In just a few seconds, their bodies shriveled up. They were all skin and bones. The wood release had completely devoured their insides. Farewell Amaterasu. The evil black flames descended and vaporized the vampires. Not even a trace of them was left. Heine's Hongren's expression changed. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2358. What kind of ability is this? So powerful? Even Akase herself was tongue-tied, let alone her teammates. She stared at Dustless's back in disbelief. This level of strength was simply invincible. To be able to kill 6 or 7 vampires in a short span of a few seconds was an overwhelming victory. At the very least, Akase believed that she was incapable of such a feat. However, it was precisely because he had killed several vampires that he was cleared of any suspicion of being a spy. Cough cough cough. Akase looked around cautiously. After discovering that there were no more vampires hiding, she revealed a rare smile and took the initiative to greet her phone. May I know your name? Just call me Dustless. Dustless replied lazily. However, in his heart, he hated this fellow even more. Earlier, before he displayed his strength, Akase had ignored him. Now that she had witnessed Dustless's strength, she was suddenly snubbed. Wasn't the speed at which she changed her attitude a little too quickly? That move you used just now was? It doesn't seem to be accursed equipment, right? Akase asked tentatively. Her eyes glowed as she looked at Dustless, as though she had seen a huge treasure. Researching some strange abilities, especially weapons and equipment that could destroy vampires, had always been his hobby. That's ninjutsu. Dustless did not try to hide it. He then said calmly, however, in this world, only I can use that ability. If you want to equip yourself with it, you should give up. Is that so? After hearing Dustless's words, Akase's eyes dimmed significantly. Of course, it was only for a brief moment. She was not the type to give up so easily. Take me to your territory. Dustless did not want to lower himself to Akase's level. If this fellow intended to use him as a lab rat, he would not mind giving her a taste of despair. After a few hours of travel, Dustless also arrived at the human city. It was slightly different from what he had imagined. He had thought that the world had been conquered by vampires, but in fact, it was not the case. Humans still controlled some territories, although the area was pitifully small, like livestock in captivity. However, after saying goodbye to the vampire and seeing a lively human being, Dustless felt particularly close. You have to come with us. Before Dustless could go out for a walk, a group of Japanese Ghost Army soldiers surrounded Dustless. Every one of them looked unfriendly. I don't think they're from Ice's Red Lotus, Dustless said with a frown. Ikines Akitomo was a scheming person. She might have some thoughts about him, but she would not fall out with him so quickly. I heard that you used a very special method to deal with the vampires. Tell me, what kind of ability is that? A condescending tone suddenly sounded. It was as if a superior was speaking to a subordinate. It was very arrogant, even condescending. It gave off the feeling that Dustless was already a fish on the chopping board. So it's him. Wuchen followed the source of the voice and saw a tall and sturdy man with an arrogant face walking over slowly. Coincidentally, Dustless also recognized this person. Moreover, his identity was very noble. Even Ikines Akitomo was inferior to him, let alone Dustless, who had no background. So it's a Twilight person. Dustless was relieved. This person and Ikines Akitomo were jackals of the same lair. When it came to human experiments, they were very tactful. They were also crazier and more despicable than Ikines Akitomo. Compared to a Twilight person, Ikines Akitomo could be considered an angel. You're the one looking for me? This person definitely did not have good intentions. Dustless was not going to be polite. He said coldly, You said I'll tell you, so I'll tell you. Then tell me, what are you? Impudent. Hearing Dustless's arrogance, the few King Ghost Army soldiers surrounding him were enraged. They looked at Dustless angrily as if they wanted to swallow Dustless alive. Yo. Seeing this, Dustless only grinned and said contemptuously, Master hasn't said anything yet, and you dogs have already spoken. Flattering so fast? Don't be too arrogant. The Twilight person's eyes were cold as he looked at Dustless. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have some strength. In the King Ghost Army, there are many like you. The Twilight person was extremely arrogant as he looked down at Dustless. Many like me? Ugh. Dustless was amused by this sentence and immediately mocked even more. Since there are many like me, why are you looking for me? You're so big, but your thinking is like that of a primary school student. You. Hearing this, the Twilight person's mouth twitched. He almost took out his tachi and cut Dustless alive. This kid's words were too infuriating. I can't deny that your ability is very unique. To be honest, I've taken a liking to you. The Twilight person looked at Dustless and said sternly, "This is your blessing to be my subordinate. Since you've taken a liking to me, you'd better watch your attitude, little brat." Dustless's words made the Twilight person speechless. He said contemptuously, "Idiot, don't you know that I came back with Hong Lian? That guy is the same as you, ambitious, but he didn't do anything to me. Do you know why? Because he's not strong enough. He's not even close to me." The Twilight person said shamelessly with a serious expression, No. You may be strong, but you're still far from it." Dustless shook his finger and said indifferently, "That's because he didn't have the confidence to take me down, so he purposely leaked the news and let you, a stupid pig, test my strength. Do you understand, idiot?" P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2359. Kid, you better look carefully. Do you know who is in front of you? He is from the Sea family, the leader of the Emperor Ghost Army. Yes, don't be ungrateful. Master Simu Run wants you to be his subordinate. That is your fortune. Don't be ungrateful. Look at your own status. That's right. Noticing that Jimu's old face had turned green, his underlings immediately began to threaten Wuxia. Some of them even pulled out their swords, their gazes sinister. You bunch of idiots. How sad. Dustless let out a long sigh. He could not help but pity the humans. If everyone was willing to let go of their grudges and work together to deal with the vampires, perhaps the human cities would have been recovered long ago. It was a pity that most people put their wisdom into fighting for power and profit. You brat. Simu Run took a deep breath and suppressed his urge to kill. He asked coldly, I will ask you one last time. Are you coming with me? In fact, it was just as Dustless had guessed. Simu Run had indeed heard the news from Ike Sakato. He heard that they had found a mysterious person with a powerful ability. That was why he had rushed over. Who would have thought that Dustless would slap him in the face so fiercely that he grimaced in pain? I will repeat myself. Don't be ungrateful. Get out of here before I get angry. Dustless impatiently scolded. If it was in the past, he would have already killed him. Attack. Simu Run could not take it anymore. He waved his hand and his followers began to attack Dustless. You overestimate yourself. Seeing this, Dustless did not hold back. A light appeared in his hand, and the dazzling Kusanagi sword appeared in the blink of an eye. The light was so dazzling that no one dared to look at it directly. You're really strange. You're mine. Seeing this, Simu Run was not afraid. Instead, he was even more interested in Dustless. His eyes were like torches, and deep in his eyes, there was a strong sense of joy. You still haven't figured out the situation. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. Wasn't this kid too confident? Did he really think that the Sea clan could cover the sky with one hand? Capture him, just injure him. Don't kill him. Dark Twilight waved his hand, and the group of lackeys charged at Dustless. Too slow. Dustless then waved his hand and a golden beam of light slashed out. Poochie. 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 The attacking Emperor Ghost Army soldiers were hit one after another, and a ghastly wound appeared on their abdomens, only one step away from their hearts. You dare to hurt him? Miao Mu was stunned for a moment before he roared. He was so angry that his nose was almost crooked. He was looking for trouble with Dustless, but in the end his own people were injured. How could he endure this? You should thank me for not killing them. Dustless said calmly, and then he hooked his finger at Dark Twilight. Kid, you're going to have to do it yourself. I heard that you're the eldest son of the Sea Clan, the leader of the Emperor Ghost Army. You seem to be a lieutenant general. Come on. Let me see what you're capable of. Wu Chen's face was full of disdain. He looked at Dark Twilight Man as if he was a clown, completely infuriating Dark Twilight Man. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. Dark Twilight couldn't bear it anymore. His face was filled with hostility. Clang! The tachi at his waist was unsheathed, releasing terrifying golden lightning. Pa, pa, pa. The sound was so loud that it hurt people's ears. Repent for me. The tachi suddenly slashed down. At the tip of the tachi, a huge golden lightning suddenly appeared, fiercely rushing towards Dustless. The ground was scorched black, and a straight crack appeared. The power was extremely strong. As expected of a lieutenant general of the Emperor Ghost Army, his explosive strength couldn't be underestimated. It was enough to pose a huge threat to vampires. Of course, it could only pose a threat to vampires. As for Dustless, such weak lightning. I don't even want to dodge it, and I don't even want to elementalize. It's too weak. Dustless closed his eyes, letting the lightning bombard his body. Boom, boom, boom. There was no doubt that the last terrifying lightning fell on Dustless's head. His whole body was swallowed by the dazzling golden lightning, and his limbs were wrapped in lightning. Bathed in lightning, Dustless was like a lightning man. This, how is this possible? After a moment, the Dark Twilight stared at Dustless. His eyes were filled with shock, and his lips were trembling slightly. Dustless, who was struck by lightning, was completely fine. His expression was calm, and his hands were in his pockets leisurely. Is that all? After a while, Wu Chen suddenly spoke up. He looked at Jimu's eyes as if his heart had waned and he had lost interest in him. In Dustless's words, the Dark Twilight's self-esteem was strong, but his strength was incomparably weak. Compared to you, I prefer that Ike's Akatsuki. At least he's tactful. Dustless suddenly tightened his thumb and pointed it at the Dark Twilight's chest. The light at the tip condensed, and the ability of the glint fruit was activated. Laser. A straight beam of light shot out at an extremely fast speed. It was like a falling meteor, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Its speed was completely beyond the limit of what the human eye could capture. Poochie. The Dark Twilight's abdomen was suddenly penetrated by the beam of light, and a thumb-sized hole appeared. The view on the other side could be seen. Lord Dark Twilight. Seeing Dustless's ferocity, many of the Emperor Ghost Army were stunned. This was a lieutenant general. How could it be so easy for Dustless to kill a chicken? It was too illogical. Damn, luckily I was smart and didn't provoke him. On the other side, Ike's Akatsuki, who was secretly observing, felt a chill run down her spine. If she rashly provoked Dustless, she would probably end up like the Dark Twilights. Fortunately, she deliberately leaked the news, and let the Dark Twilight's Dark Twilight be the scapegoat. As expected, he was beaten like a dog. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2360. He serves him right. Dustless is really something. If he had been a little more ruthless, he could have killed Ji Murin. If that had happened, that old man Ji Tianli would have been furious. Akatsuki sneered at the scene. From the beginning to the end, he was gloating. As for sympathy, even if it was for a vampire, he would not have sympathized with the Ji family. Akatsuki's childhood sweetheart was Ji Jinori. The two of them were childhood sweethearts. In the end, because they were separated from the main family, they were heartlessly separated. After Ji Jinori died, Akatsuki hated the Ji family from the bottom of her soul. If Ji Murin died, he did not mind opening a bottle of champagne to celebrate. Plop! With his body pierced, Ji Murin was like a candle in the wind. His strength was instantly drained, and he fell to the ground in extreme pain. That's it. Dustless slowly walked over and stepped on Ji Murin's cheek. He asked coldly, "Little brat, where is your ambition? Where is that arrogant look from before? Kill me if you dare." Ji Murin roared like a raging beast. His eyes were red and emitted a terrifying light. Kill you? I will not use such a gentle method. Dustless shook his head and continued. If I kill you, it will be the same as freeing you. I will let you live in the nightmare that I created for you forever. Isn't that better? Bastard, bastard, bastard. Jimu roared furiously in his heart, and the veins on his forehead bulged. As a lieutenant general of the Ghost Army of Japan, and the eldest son of the Ji family, now Wuchen was stepping on his face. What kind of great shame was this? Ji Murin felt like he was about to explode. Bad guy, let go of big brother, or father will teach you a lesson. Right at this time, a childish voice passed over. Dustless's line of sight shifted over. A purple-haired little girl immediately came into view. You look familiar. Dustless stared at the little girl for a moment. Suddenly, he remembered that she called Feng Muren big brother. He then asked with interest. Kid, are you called Feng Xiaoya? Yes. No, my name is not Chua Xiaoya. The little girl nodded when she heard this, and then she immediately shook her head in denial for fear that Dustless would harm her. Her appearance was rather comical. Although this guy doesn't deserve death, he still needs to be taught a lesson. Dustless said calmly. He didn't have the intention to kill the people of Dusk, but he had to teach them an unforgettable lesson. Feel it well. Dustless laughed. His laughter was so evil that many people couldn't help but take a few steps back. At this moment, Dustless seemed to be even more terrifying than those noble vampires. Tsukuyomi. Boundless psyche invaded Feng Muren's mind, and the world in his eyes changed drastically. He was horrified to discover that he seemed to have entered another space-time. Feng Muren was tied to a cross alone, and in front of him, Dustless was holding a dagger and staring at him, as though he was considering where to start. Ah, get lost, get lost, get lost. A few minutes later, the twilight inside the Tsukuyomi world had a mental breakdown. It opened its mouth like a madman and roared with endless fear. Kid, go back. In the real world, Dustless glanced at Feng Xiaoya and pointed at the trembling Feng Muren at his feet. He said with a smile, although I didn't kill him, it's unknown if he can still live normally after experiencing Tsukuyomi. Perhaps his temperament will change drastically. In short, stay away from this brother of yours in the future. With that said, Dustless left without waiting for Feng Xiaoya's reaction. What a strange fellow. Staring at Dustless's back, Feng Xiaoya tilted her head. Her puzzled look was extremely adorable. She couldn't figure out what he was talking about. This fellow is too terrifying. Ike's Red Lotus looked at the collapsed Feng Muren from afar. He was trembling, and his eyes were gray and dull, as though he had experienced the most terrifying thing in his life. What made Ike's Red Lotus at a loss of whether to laugh or cry was that the crotch of Feng Muren's pants was inexplicably wet. There was also a strange smell. He had actually peed his pants from fright. If it were in the past, Ike's Red Lotus would definitely mock Feng Muren, but for some reason she couldn't laugh now. She understood Feng Muren's personality. His willpower could be said to be iron. Now Dustless had actually been tortured by this fellow to the point of peeing his pants. What kind of terrifying encounter had he experienced? Just thinking about it made Ike's Red Lotus's heart turn cold. Her fear of Dustless also multiplied. Thankfully, the one who provoked Dustless was not me. Ike's Red Lotus shrunk her neck. She suddenly felt that she was too lucky. This was practically the blessing of an angel. If she had been a little more reckless back then, the one lying there and peeing his pants might have been her. That show just now, was it exciting? A ghostly voice suddenly rang out. There was no warning, and it was unknown where the voice came from. There was no one around, and it was deathly silent. Good, of course it was good. Ike's Red Lotus said without hesitation. If possible, I wish that the one who got peed on was that old bastard Feng Tianli. Feng Tianli was also the person in charge of the Feng family. At the same time, he was also the marshal of the Imperial Ghost Army. He was also the main culprit who separated Ike's Red Lotus from Feng Tianli. Who is it? However, the moment he said those words, Ike's Red Lotus regretted it. If the hardcore members of the Feng family were to hear this, he would definitely be finished. He abruptly turned his head and saw a pair of smiling eyes sizing him up. Icase Red Lotus's pupils shrank, and a look of panic flashed across his face. Dustless also noticed it. You instigated Feng Mu Run to cause trouble for me. This debt must be settled. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2361. Even this fellow knows? Icase Red Lotus's face abruptly changed. She clenched her fists so hard that sweat appeared on them. She stared at Dustless with uncertain eyes. It's not me. It's definitely not me. Icase Red Lotus denied it without even thinking about it. Is that so? Dustless suddenly laughed and said to himself, how about this? Let me search your memories. I refuse. Icase Red Lotus rejected it without even thinking about it. Search my memories? It would be fine if Dustless was lying to me. However, what if he found out my hidden secrets? Secret information regarding the Ghost Curse equipment. Since you said so, I'll take it as you admitting that you instigated Twilight Man to provoke me. The corners of Dustless's lips curled into a bright smile. However, in Red Lotus eyes, it was the grim smile of the Grim Reaper. Let's talk things over. Icase Red Lotus smiled awkwardly. She was not as arrogant as Twilight Man. Instead, she spoke in a submissive tone. You are so strong. Surely, you won't bother with a minor character like me, right? You are right. A lion will never turn back, because of the squeaking of a mouse. Dustless nodded slightly. Only then did Icase Red Lotus calm down. However, Dustless's next words caused her heart to skip a beat. However, since you dared to trick me, you will have to pay the price, right? Hearing this, Icase Red Lotus' face froze and she asked, if you have something to say, just say it. If I can do it, I will definitely help. It's simple. Since I came here, I have yet to find a place to stay. I'll leave it to you. Secondly, Dustless suddenly stopped talking. He looked at the Ghost Curse equipment on Icase Red Lotus' waist. This weapon looks good. I need one. Don't try to fool me with trash. I want the Ghost Curse equipment of the Black Devil series. Is this it? Only then did Akira Icase let out a sigh of relief. If that was all, he could agree to Dustless's request. For him, this was not a big deal. Although casually giving Dustless the Black Devil series cursed equipment would definitely incur the wrath of his superiors, it was not a big deal to appease Dustless. Come with me. Icase Honglian led the way. Although she was not strong, she was quite good at reading people. She knew who she could afford to offend and who she needed to curry favor with. At least you know what's good for you, kid. Otherwise, humph. Dustless gave a cold harumph. He did not want to lower himself to the same level as Icase Red Lotus. If this brat dared to scheme again, there was no harm in crushing him to death. At this moment in a hospital, the surroundings were already on guard. All of them were members of the Imperial Ghost Army. Their expressions were solemn, and their bodies exuded a strong murderous aura. It was as if they had all been on the battlefield. Father. In the best ward of the hospital, by twilight opened his eyes and looked at the burly man in front of him. His face suddenly turned serious. This tall man's eyes were cold and intimidating. One of his cheeks was covered by a mask. His tall and sturdy figure looked very oppressive. Just by standing there, he made people unable to breathe. He had an imposing aura without being angry. You must take care of that bastard who provoked the Bai family. Otherwise, anyone can learn from Dustless in the future. For example, Akira Icase. Hearing this, Bai Tianli remained silent. He only glanced at Bai Twilight indifferently and asked in a deep voice, "That guy defeated you? Is he very strong?" "Yes." Bai Twilight nodded. Thinking of the torture he experienced, being imprisoned in the Tsukuyami world for 24 hours, it was a fate worse than death. Not only is he strong, but his ability is also very special. It doesn't seem to be a curse. According to Dustless, it seems to be a ninjutsu. Bai Twilight said in detail. Although I don't know what ability it is, one thing is certain, he is very strong. Trash. After a moment of silence, Bai Tianli suddenly glanced at Bai Twilight coldly. You actually didn't even figure out that guy's ability. Twilight, you really disappointed me. As soon as his voice fell, Bai Tianli turned around and left, unwilling to look at Bai Twilight. Father, you. The handsome young man on the other side slightly changed his expression. When he was about to chase after him, he was stopped by Bai Twilight. Enough, Midnight. Do you think father will sympathize with me? Stop dreaming. This handsome young man was the adopted son of the Bai family by Midnight. In father's eyes, the so-called family has long faded. Bai Twilight stared at Bai Tianli's back. He was unusually calm, and there wasn't even the slightest change in his expression. It seemed that he had already expected such an outcome. You go and follow father. I suspect that he went to find Dustless. Ji Mu's eyes sparkled as he calmly said, Father has two choices for those who have great powers. Either he roped them in or he killed them. Not to mention, that guy provoked the Ji family. By Midnight was silent. In the end, he nodded his head. As the adopted son of the Bai family, he knew the nature of this family too well. There was no affection between brothers and sisters. The only thing left was to make use of each other. At the same time, Ike's Hongren led Dustless to a special place. The two of them stood in front of a sealed iron door. The door was covered with various talismans. They could also hear eerie and strange screams that made them feel uncomfortable. This is the place. Opening the iron door, Ike's Hongren and Dustless entered the room. The first thing that entered their eyes was a few green-faced and fanged ghost statues. They were abnormally terrifying. These masks seemed to be able to come to life at any time, causing one to involuntarily shiver. This is it. Dustless suddenly saw a katana. Without thinking, he walked over. I think it's called a Juroamaru. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 ratings plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2362. That's it. On the other side, Akatsuki was stunned and couldn't help but be speechless. She didn't even tell Dustless the rules, but this guy directly took the ghost curse weapon. Isn't he afraid of being controlled by the ghost? Wait, there's something I want to tell you. For the sake of safety, Akatsuki said seriously. The ghost curse weapon is not a trivial matter you want. What do I want? Without giving Akatsuki a chance to talk nonsense, Dustless interrupted her and said indifferently, Do you think a ghost can control me? This joke is too tasteless. Tasteless. Hearing this, Akatsuki's mouth twitched. It turned out that such a serious question, in the eyes of others, was not worth mentioning. At the same time, from the moment he pulled out a Juro pill, a strong spiritual force invaded his mind. The world in front of Dustless also changed, a hazy white fog. There was no one around. It seemed that he had come to a strange world. Interesting. After a while, Dustless's mouth suddenly flashed a thought-provoking smile. Just now, he clearly felt the existence of the unknown, deliberately hiding from him and disappeared. Do you think you can run away? Dustless whispered secretly. At the same time, his observation haki spread out. In just a moment, the hidden shadow was found. Shoo shoo shoo. Without saying a word, Silver directly turned into an aurora and rushed over. Whoosh. The moving flash was unstoppable. The harsh sound made people cover their ears. And the figure hidden in the white fog was no exception. What kind of monster is it, making such a big movement? The boy in the white fog was surprised, looking at him. He was obviously a man, but his appearance and dress were very similar to a woman's. It was very strange. Kid, do you have a hobby of cross-dressing? The white fog surrounding the boy was dispelled, and Dustless appeared like a ghost, with his hands in his pockets, quietly looking down at the blood-eyed boy. I'm not a kid, I'm a few thousand years old. Looking at Dustless, the purple-haired young man grumbled. Also, get this straight. I'm a ghost. How can I not be afraid? Be careful or I'll swallow you. As soon as he finished speaking, the purple-haired imp made a face. Swallow me? Dustless laughed involuntarily and suddenly raised a finger, looking somewhat baffled. What do you mean? The purple-haired imp, Ajiramaru, asked with a frown. Dustless's host gave off a strange feeling. You don't even know this? No wonder you're a child. Dustless shook his head and said something that made Ajirumaru fly into a rage. I only need one finger to kill you 1,000 times over. Mere human. How dare you look down on me? Hearing this, Ajirumaru looked at Dustless angrily, as if he was really enraged. He bared his terrifying fangs. You don't believe me? Dustless asked indifferently. Of course I don't believe you. Ajirumaru proudly turned his head and said proudly with his back facing Dustless, I'm a ghost, and you're just a human. How can you use? The words that were about to come out of his mouth stopped abruptly. Unknowingly, Dustless's thumb was already aimed at Ajirumaru's neck, embellished with a dazzling golden light, as if it could pierce Ajirumaru's throat as long as he flicked it gently. Now you believe me. Dustless smiled slightly. This world really respected the strong. After showing a little strength, this kid immediately became obedient. You brat, that move just now is not something that ordinary humans can control. Ajirumaru looked at Dustless curiously, his eyes filled with disbelief. For example, Ajirumaru's former host, Kiyoshi Shinori, was far less mysterious than Dustless. At least, he didn't have such an incredible ability. I'm indeed slightly different from other humans, just like you're different from other vampires, Dustless said plainly. You know that I'm a vampire? Hearing this, Ajirumaru looked at Dustless in shock. The so-called ghost was actually a vampire that turned into a vampire after extreme blood loss. There are many things that you don't know, little brat. In short, you're my weapon from now on. In the misty white space, Wuxia's figure disappeared after leaving behind such a sentence. What was left behind was Ajirumaru, who could only stare blankly. Was there something wrong? This is his world, and Dustless can come and go as he pleases. In the outside world, Ike's Hongren looked at Dustless nervously. As long as he didn't tame Ajirumaru, she would kill Dustless. Clang, clang, clang. Time ticked by, and Dustless still didn't move. Ike's Hongren couldn't help but unsheath her tachi. What are you trying to do? Ike's Hongren. The sudden voice caused Ike's Hongren to break out in cold sweat. Raising her head, she saw Dustless silently sizing her up. I thought you can't control ghosts. Ike's Hongren wiped off the cold sweat and took a deep breath. Can't control ghosts? Are you afraid that he will take over my body? That little brat called Ajirumaru would barely be able to control me even if he was 1,000 times stronger. Dustless snorted. It's just a ghost. How are the preparations for my residence coming along? Dustless walked toward the exit. Since he had already obtained the ghost curse equipment, there was no need for him to stay here. That's a small matter. I have already informed them. From now on, you can live without any worries. Ike's Hongren vowed. That's good. Our previous grudges are written off. You may leave. Dustless glanced at Ike's Hongren and left. However, after taking a few steps, a new uninvited guest appeared. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2363. The man who suddenly appeared was burly and muscular. His huge body was several times heavier than Dustless's, and he exuded an oppressive aura. It wasn't hard to tell that this person was either rich or noble. He was someone of high status. What's the matter? Looking at the man in front of him, Dustless asked calmly, Big guy, get out of my way. What if I don't let you have the meeting? The burly man asked. Nothing will happen. Dustless was still calm as he said slowly. But when you leave, you'll definitely be lying down. How dare you? Seeing Dustless's arrogance, the Emperor Ghost Army who followed him here glared at him. This is the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal, Sir Sun Tianli. Mortal, watch your tone and cooperate. It's best if you don't cause trouble for yourself. The shrimp soldiers and crab generals who followed Sun Tianli scolded loudly. So it's the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal. Hearing this, Dustless wasn't surprised at all. He maintained his composure and grinned. The King of Clowns is here. What business do you have with me? How dare you? Clang, clang, clang. The Emperor Ghost Army who followed Sun Tianli all drew their swords and looked at Dustless with hatred. It was as if they would join forces to cut Dustless into pieces and tear this arrogant brat apart if Sun Tianli gave the order. You've got guts. Sun Tianli looked at Dustless with interest and said in a low voice, "After so many years, you're the first person who dares to speak to me like this. Do you know what kind of consequences this arrogance will bring to you?" "I don't know." Dustless answered simply, then asked casually, "Actually, I also want to ask. Do you know what kind of consequences await those who dare to stand in my way?" As Dustless's words fell, the atmosphere became extremely cold. Sun Tianli's gaze became as sharp as a knife, enough to pierce through a person's mind. "Are you interested in joining the Emperor Ghost Army?" After staying silent for a while, Shui Tianli realized that he still could not see through Dustless. He also understood that this guy's calmness was not an act. He could be considered a talent, so he decided to rope him in. "Your son was almost killed by me," Dustless said meaningfully. "Aren't you afraid that he will hate you, his father?" "Hate me? That's his private matter. I have no right to ask," Tai Tianli replied casually. At the same time he said nonchalantly, "Furthermore, in this world, human lives are as cheap as dogs. How much do you think the so-called kinship is worth? Besides, the Xi family doesn't need trash." "You're quite insightful. As expected of the Supreme Ghost Army's marshal." Dustless nodded slightly. After a moment of silence, he agreed to see Tianli's invitation. "Since I have nothing to do, I'll agree to temporarily join the Emperor Ghost Army. However, there are some things that need to be agreed upon. I don't want anyone to force me. Do you understand?" "Of course." Shui Tianli agreed without any hesitation. In his opinion, this was the right of the strong. Freedom was a must. "Then I can't be stingy." Shui Tianli looked at Dustless with burning eyes. When he thought of the fact that he could easily kill Ji Mu, Shui Tianli could not help but ponder. Ji Mu was a lieutenant general. If Dustless was a lieutenant general, it would not be suitable for him. "If that's the case, you will be the general of the Supreme Ghost Army from now on." Shui Tianli's words were shocking. Everyone was shocked. "Are you kidding me? Why is there such a huge difference between people?" Haine Sakami, who was observing in the dark, suddenly felt her face twitching. Dustless had really reached the heavens in a single step. From an ordinary human to a general of the Supreme Ghost Army, his position was second only to Shui Tianli. Even Ji Mu was not as good as Dustless. This is the benefit of being strong. Haine Sakami sighed. If it was someone else, they would have to endure for at least a few decades to sit in this position. They would also need to be extremely strong and have a strong background. "Let's work together in the future." Shui Tianli stretched out his right hand magnanimously. It seemed that he wanted to shake Dustless's hand. However, he was instantly slapped in the face. "Sorry, I'm not feeling well. I'll go back for now. Send someone to inform me if there's anything." After leaving such a sentence, Dustless swaggered away. The Supreme Ghost Army watched in cold sweat. Did this guy know the consequences of offending the Shui family? Then it's settled for now. Shui Tianli did not argue with Dustless. This bit of humiliation was nothing to him. It was not worth falling out with Dustless over this. In fact, the reason why Dustless was made the general of the Supreme Ghost Army was that Shui Tianli found that Dustless did not have the ambition to conquer Japan. This did not conflict with Shui Tianli's interests. Therefore, there was no harm in giving Dustless the position of general. It was equivalent to having a superfighter. Why not? This guy is really lucky. Some Supreme Ghost Army soldiers secretly complained. They would probably be insignificant people for the rest of their lives. On the other hand, Dustless directly became the core of the Supreme Ghost Army. Even Lieutenant General Ji Mu was not as good as Dustless. This is going to be interesting. If Brother Murin knows about this, he will definitely jump out of his bed in anger. Shui Late Night, who had rushed over, happened to see this scene. His eyes narrowed slightly. Although he was the adopted son of the Shui family, he did not have the slightest good impression of this family. He had even discussed with Isis Hongren to defeat this family together. Bang, bang, bang. About an hour later, as Shui Late Night had guessed, after telling Muren the cause and effect of everything, This guy flew into a rage and smashed all the fruit baskets that were sent over. The originally bandaged wound was bleeding again. His irksome sworn enemy suddenly rode on his head and showed off. This was too infuriating. The speed of a salted fish turning over a new leaf was too fast. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2364. What made Jimu's people unable to accept was that Wuchen had inexplicably become a general. What the F***ck was this? I've worked so hard for so many years to reach the rank of lieutenant general, but this brat didn't do anything big. He beat me up and almost lost half of his life. Not only did he not get punished, but he also became the only general in the Emperor Ghost Army. What made Jimu cry the most was that the person who gave the order was his father. I don't accept this, I don't accept this, I don't accept this. In the ward, the resentful roar of the Dusk people could be heard. This was too humiliating. He had been beaten half to death. Not only was Wuchen not punished, but he had also become the general of the Emperor Ghost Army. He would be his subordinate in the future. This was even worse than eating 10 pounds of flies. Brother Twilight, it's useless to complain now. Just accept your fate. You Late Night couldn't help but sympathize with Dustless. Poochie. Unable to withstand the blow, the dark dusk man spat out a mouthful of blood. He, who could be called a man of steel, was unable to withstand a single blow and fainted. Under the lead of IK's Red Lotus, Dustless arrived at his residence. It was a standalone villa. It wasn't luxurious. After all, the current era was too chaotic. Humanity was on the verge of collapse. It was difficult to survive, let alone enjoy a luxurious life. However, the environment was not bad. At least it was quiet. You can go back now. Dustless ordered her to leave. He turned around and entered the room. Bang. He closed the door. It seemed that he had no intention of letting IK's Red Lotus in. This guy. IK's Red Lotus frowned deeply. Everyone knew that she didn't like the Yu family. In fact, she hated them. She couldn't wait to get rid of them. However, her strength was limited, and she had been hiding her ambition. At this moment, Dustless had joined the C family and became C Tianli's lackey. His relationship with IK's Korea had become subtle. They could not be considered friends, but they could not be considered enemies either. As for what would happen in the future, IK's Korea was actually quite troubled. Forget it. I'll take one step at a time. I hope this guy isn't my enemy. Otherwise, damn it. My life is really dark. IK's Red Lotus angrily complained as she helplessly left. Her back was especially hunched and bleak. Dustless no longer had the concept of time. A few years was just a blink of an eye. In any case, he was an immortal existence, so his appearance wouldn't age. But for others, it had already been a few years. In the past few years, Dustless had witnessed too many things. Those little brats of the past had grown up and become independent figures. Many of them had fought with vampires and died without leaving behind a corpse. In the past few years, Dustless viewed certain things as a passerby. He had once seen vampires feeding on human blood, killing them all, young and old. Just like harvesting leeks, humans were cut down wave after wave. Not only that, Dustless had also witnessed with his own eyes that when humans were at the brink of death, they would erupt with even greater power, even crazier and more terrifying than wild beasts. For example, those scalp-numbing human experiments. How stupid are vampires? How crazy are humans? This sentence had become Dustless's catchphrase. In a gloomy laboratory, Dustless paced back and forth. When he was bored, he would participate in vampire experiments. Fortunately, as the general of the Supreme Ghost Army, Dustless had participated in many battles against vampires in the past few years. Every time he appeared, the outcome was almost always an overwhelming victory. No matter how many vampires and high-ranking nobles came, they couldn't withstand a single blow and were all crushed. Because of this, Dustless's prestige was like the sun in the sky. The Supreme Ghost Army didn't have to know who the general was, but they had to know who Dustless was. As Dustless had slaughtered too many vampires, every time they saw him, the vampires would run for their lives in groups. This gave Dustless a rather resounding nickname, Golden Reaper. This was all because of the glint fruit. What are you doing here? In the laboratory, Ikanes Hongren frowned as she looked at Dustless. In the past few years, she found that she couldn't see through Dustless. Although he was the general of the Supreme Ghost Army, Dustless had always ignored Marshal Si Tianli's orders. He didn't even care about Si Tianli's people. There were even a few times when he slapped Si Tianli in public. Pay attention to your tone. You're just a lieutenant. Dustless casually found a place to sit down. He looked at the pills on the table and said calmly, "You're quite ambitious, kid. If the Si family finds out about these experiments, do you think you can still live?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Hongren's expression froze, but it was only for a moment. "Is that so?" Dustless smiled. "Then let's start from the beginning. Hongren, why did you save Yuichiro Hayakuya? Don't tell me it was a coincidence. Freed deliberately let Yuichiro Hayakuya go, and you just happened to appear at that time. What's your relationship with vampires? No, not just ordinary vampires. What's your relationship with those noble vampires?" That's all a coincidence." Ikanes Hongren quibbled with a gloomy expression. "Coincidence? I can think of it that way, but do you think the Si family will agree?" Dustless asked calmly. This one sentence was a huge blow to Ikanes Hongren. If the Si family found out about Yuichiro Hayakuya, they would definitely investigate. Just the surname Hayakuya alone was enough to attract the attention of the Si family. Boom, boom, boom. It was also at this moment that something unexpected happened. A violent explosion resounded through the sky. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2365. Looking from afar, black smoke could be seen rising from the school not far away. Those who did not know would think that the school was on fire. However, that was not the case. The vampire used for the experiment has suddenly escaped. Students, please take shelter. The vampire used for the experiment has suddenly escaped. Students, please take shelter. The vampire used for the experiment has suddenly escaped. Students, please take shelter. Take shelter. If you are caught by the vampire, the consequences will be unimaginable. In the broadcast, the phrase "take refuge" was repeated over and over again. After hearing that the vampire had escaped, many students were scared out of their wits and hurriedly ran for their lives without caring about anything else. For ordinary humans, the vampire was the culprit behind the destruction of the world. They were simply too powerful. Troublesome things keep happening one after another. Red Lotus sighed as she heard the broadcast as well. She helplessly closed her eyes and lay on her chair. Her face revealed a deep sense of helplessness. However, Dustless suddenly tossed the black pill in his hand to Red Lotus and calmly said, "Honestly, I am quite looking forward to it." Looking forward to it? Hearing this, Red Lotus could not help but be stunned. She looked at Dustless suspiciously and said, "Unbelievable. You would be interested in such a boring experiment." No, you misunderstood me." Dustless shook his finger and looked at the black pill. He smiled meaningfully and said, "I have always been looking forward to the legendary Seraph of Termination, a power that can destroy the world. TSK interesting." "You bastard." Hearing this, Red Lotus' pupils shrank. When she looked at Dustless again, he had disappeared. All that was left were the black pills on the table. Do not underestimate these pills. In the original work, Yuichiro Hayakuya used these pills to go berserk. The vampire has escaped? That is great. Ha ha ha. The time for me to show off my skills has finally come. Within the chaotic school, there was a figure that was different from the other students. This boy had a face full of excitement as he ran with a katana in his hand. The place he was heading to was the place where the vampire was wreaking havoc. Behind him, there was a purple-haired young lady. "You stop. You can't possibly be a match for the vampire." The girl looked anxious. She was Sui Xiaoya. She wanted to stop Yuichiro, but he ran too fast. She couldn't catch up to him. Who would listen to you? Leave this vampire to me. I'll make Red Lotus see me in a new light and leave this boring school. Yuichiro didn't listen to the advice at all. He kept running with all his strength. How could he let go of such a rare opportunity? Absolutely impossible. You ignorant brat. You have never understood the horror of vampires. How can you kill vampires with your strength? Ignorant. Stupid. Swan Xiaoya was also secretly annoyed. Red Lotus had sent him to monitor Hyakuya Yuichiro, but this brat was really too stupid. If you want to kill a vampire, you must use the ghost curse equipment. Normal weapons are useless against them. Even if the head is pierced, the vampire's abnormal life force can still survive. Furthermore, Yuichiro didn't have any ghost curse equipment. Wasn't he courting death by challenging the vampire? Stupid, listen to me. If you want to kill a vampire, you must use the ghost curse equipment. Otherwise, even if you cut off their head, they can still survive tenaciously. Seeing Yuichiro running faster and faster, Swan Xiaoya, who was panting from exhaustion, continued to persuade him. Only a fool would believe you. Yuichiro still didn't turn back. He stubbornly ran in the direction of the vampire. Not far away, a vampire in a prisoner's uniform was jumping around. Her scarlet eyes were jumping around, looking at the students who were running in all directions. It seemed to be looking for a target to devour. Damn vampire, you want to suck blood, come here. Yuichiro Hyakuya suddenly shouted, and immediately attracted the vampire's attention. Brat, if you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. The female vampire smiled sinisterly. After licking her lips, she immediately pounced on Yuichiro. Shoo shoo shoo. Her speed was so fast that only a faint afterimage could be seen. So fast. Seeing this, Yuichiro was stunned. The vampire's strength was beyond his imagination. She was so fast that even he couldn't see her clearly. Oh no. Swan Xiaoya's face changed. Looking at the blood at the corner of the female vampire's mouth, she muttered to herself. Has she sucked blood? It seems that she has recovered her strength. Get out of the way. You are no match for her. The strength of a hungry vampire and a vampire who had sucked blood were two completely different levels. Get out of the way? Absolutely not. Yuichiro shook his head. He finally found a chance to prove his strength. If he ran away now, Red Lotus would look down on him when she heard the news. Absolutely not. This idiot. He doesn't even have the ghost curse equipment. How dare he challenge a vampire alone? Do you think everyone is as sick as Dustless? Swan Xiaoya cursed. In her impression, the only person who could defeat a vampire without the ghost curse equipment was Dustless. However, in this world, there was only one Dustless, just like there was only one general in the Emperor Ghost Army. They were both unique. Go to hell. Yuichiro's eyes were ferocious. He fiercely swung his sword, aiming at the vampire's head. It was as if he was going to split her whole body. Yuichiro's hatred for vampires was engraved in his heart. If it weren't for vampires, his family wouldn't have died. If it weren't for vampires, Michael wouldn't have been pierced in the abdomen by Freed. However, what happened next caused his pupils to constrict abruptly. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2366. Clang. When he looked up, he saw that the female vampire had used only one hand to grab the blade that was coming at her. It was effortless, as if she was grabbing a fire stick. How is this possible? Yuichiro Hyakuya was stunned. He looked at the female vampire in astonishment. His heart trembled violently, and his eyes became hollow. Looking at the distorted face, he felt a lingering fear. The John's 4 horsemen that I killed in the past was not this powerful. Yuichiro was trembling and his legs were weak. Idiot. Unexpectedly, the female vampire only smiled contemptuously. That's just a bunch of trash. I'm a vampire. Do you think a small fry like you can kill me? Are you dreaming? Idiot! Yuichiro was furious. He clenched his teeth and used all his strength to grab the blade. It was as if he was going to pull it out. Hee hee. The female vampire just smiled contemptuously. Her 2 fingers gently grasped the tip of the katana. In any case, even if Yuichiro tried his best, he couldn't pull out the katana. It was as if the difference in strength between them was dimensional. Get out of the way, Yuichiro. Yuichiro heard Sasuke Xiaoya's voice from behind. He turned around and saw the girl holding a huge scythe. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. She waved her slender arm, and the blade was aimed at the female vampire's face. Ghost curse weapon? The female vampire's body trembled and her pupils shrunk. She felt a piercing chill. She did not hesitate and quickly retreated. Brat, you are strong. The female vampire's face turned pale. She might have died if she was a little slower. She immediately pointed at Yuichiro and said with disdain, "You are much stronger than this idiot." Idiot. Yuichiro's face was red with anger. He turned around and looked at Sasuke Xiaoya furiously. "Give me your weapon. I want this guy to regret living in this world." "You idiot." Sasuke Xiaoya scolded. "I don't understand. Lieutenant Colonel Akamoto saw you. Don't you know? Ghost curse weapon can only be used by the host who has signed a contract." He is indeed an idiot. The female vampire also mocked Yuichiro. "You're overestimating yourself. You don't even have a cursed weapon and you dare to challenge me? Do you want to die that much?" Swish. 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 As soon as she finished speaking, the female vampire pounced on Yuichiro Hayakuya. It was easier to kill this guy. Swan Xiaoya had the ghost curse equipment, and her strength was obviously not something that Hayakuya Yuichiro could compare to. Quick dodge. Excellent. Sasuke Xiaoya ordered anxiously. She scolded the female vampire for being shameless. Capturing Yuichiro Hayakuya alive was equivalent to having a hostage. The chances of leaving alive would be greater. Dodge. What kind of joke was this? I'm going to kill all the vampires. These damn scum have no right to live in this world. Yuichiro Hayakuya was extremely stubborn. His eyes were bloodshot as if he was possessed by a devil. Die. Yuichiro Hayakuya held the sword with both hands and slashed at the female vampire with all his strength. However, no matter how hard he tried, the result was the same as before. Clang, clang, clang. The long-haired female vampire grabbed Yuichiro Hayakuya's tachi with only one hand. She sneered, "You're too weak without the ghost curse equipment. Get over here." With a sudden tug, Yuichiro Hayakuya fell over. His throat was instantly locked, and he became a glorious hostage. Idiot. Sasuke Xiaoya saw this scene and closed her eyes in despair. Although this kid hated vampires, he knew too little about this race. I won't hold back. With a sinister smile, the female vampire bit Yuichiro Hayakuya's neck and greedily sucked his blood. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Seeing this scene, Swan Xiaoya was extremely displeased, but she was also extremely helpless. She could only watch helplessly. Once the female vampire sucked blood, her strength would recover even faster. When that happened, he didn't even know if he could deal with her. Damn it. Yuichiro Hayakuya was furious. He wanted to kill the vampire, but in the end he became her nourishment. It was extremely frustrating. Let's stop here. At this moment an indifferent voice suddenly came. This voice seemed to contain an inexplicable power. Everyone stopped what they were doing, including the female vampire who was sucking blood. They all looked in the direction of the voice at the same time. Which bastard is disturbing my meal? The female vampire was furious. She raised her head and looked over. Her pupils suddenly shrank as if she had seen a ghost. She quickly retreated as if she had seen her natural enemy. Long time no see, Xiaoya. Dustless glanced at Sasuke Xiaoya. His cold cheeks revealed a rare smile. I didn't expect that kid from back then to be so strong. He can even stand on his own. Phew. Fortunately you're here. Otherwise, this kid would be finished. After she saw Wuchen make an appearance, Chua Xiaoya heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a shy smile like a young girl, and her beautiful eyes faintly carried an expression of adoration. It's you, Dustless? Yuichiro Hayakuya, who had escaped from a disaster, looked at Dustless in surprise. Dustless was also the one who had escaped from the vampire city with him. However, what was surprising was that after a few years, Dustless's face didn't show any signs of aging. He was like a vampire who always maintained his youth. What's going on? Why is this female vampire suddenly so scared? Yuichiro Hyakuya looked at the trembling female vampire with a puzzled expression. Dustless didn't seem to do anything. Just by appearing, she was so scared that she couldn't find her bearings. Idiot. Sasuke Xiaoya shook her head and explained. Dustless is the only general in the Emperor Ghost Army. Do you know how strong he is? The vampires even gave him a special nickname. To the vampires, he is a man of nightmares. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2367. The Nightmare of Vampires? Hearing this, Yuichiro Hyakuya couldn't help but look at Dustless curiously. Vampires were the natural enemies of humans, but this man was known as the Nightmare of Vampires. Wasn't this contrast a little too huge? He has a famous nickname called the Golden Reaper, which was given to him by vampires. Sasu Xiaoyao explained softly. Do you know why this female vampire is afraid of Dustless? Is it because of the nickname Golden Reaper and the Nightmare of Vampires? Yuichiro asked subconsciously. Not really. Sasu Xiaoya shook her head and nodded. It's because the one who captured this vampire was Dustless. The Emperor Ghost Army needed a lot of vampires for experiments. Sometimes Dustless couldn't be bothered to kill ants, so he captured a lot of vampires. But it's not that exaggerated, right? Look, that female vampire is so scared that she peed her pants. Yuichiro sympathized with vampires for the first time in his life, as he looked at the trembling female vampire. He looked up and saw that the female vampire was wearing a prison uniform. The crotch area was wet, and there was a choking smell. It's a little exaggerated. Seeing this, Ran Xiaoya rubbed her nose speechlessly. Let me send you on your way. Dustless stared at the female vampire, and didn't make things difficult for her. He said calmly, You should know that the difference in strength between us is too big. It's impossible to escape. The female vampire didn't say anything. She just looked at Dustless silently and nodded as if she was relieved. Clang. 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 Dustless didn't waste any time and walked to the female vampire, as if he was taking a stroll. He pulled out the ghost curse equipment, a Juro pill. The strangest thing was that Dustless was standing in front of the female vampire. The female vampire was like a docile little lamb. She didn't resist at all, as if she had accepted her fate. Not only that, but she also took one last look at the azure sky. Her blood-red eyes flashed with nostalgia, and the corners of her mouth actually revealed a cheerful smile. She was like a lazy cat, comfortably enjoying the sunlight. It was quite charming. It was hard to imagine that a cruel vampire would have such a cute look. Don't be a vampire in your next life. Dustless pierced her heart directly, and her body started dismembering and disintegrating. How is that possible? Yuichiro Hyakuya widened his eyes in disbelief. His face was filled with shock. His impression of vampires was that they were cruel and cold-blooded. However, the vampire in front of him gave him a very different feeling before she died. She was like an innocent little girl. Thank you. The female vampire took a look at Wu Chun, and then her body disappeared completely. Thank you? Are you kidding me? This guy's brain must have been scared silly. Wu Chun killed her, and even thanked her. What a moron. Hyakuya Yuichiro groaned. Today's scene had refreshed his understanding of the world. Brat, your knowledge is too shallow. Dustless glanced at Yuichiro and looked at the blue sky. In the eyes of humans, vampires are ugly devils. But in the eyes of vampires, do you know what humans are? Of course I know. Don't forget, I was a livestock for vampires for a few years. Humans are their food. My family was also kept in captivity by them, but they were killed in the end. Yuichiro clenched his fists and gritted his teeth when he talked about vampires. You are right. Humans are indeed the food of vampires. But there are other aspects. Dustless sat on the bench and explained wisely. In the eyes of vampires, humans are ugly and dirty. It was because of the greed and ambition of humans that led to the destruction of the world. Vampires hate humans, just like how humans hate vampires. In the end, the two races can't live without each other, but they hate each other. Sometimes, the thoughts of intelligent creatures are really hard to understand. Over the years, Dustless had experienced too much. And what he had seen was also the same. Vampires were ugly, but so were humans. It was precisely because of those crazy human experiment programs that unknown and terrible viruses were leaked out, and the world was destroyed. Humans were afraid of vampires, and vampires were afraid of humans. You bastard. Yuichiro's eyes focused on Dustless. He frowned and asked, "Why do you sound like you are defending vampires?" Defending? No, I am just stating a fact. Remember, there is no right or wrong in this world, and there is no absolute evil. Sometimes, a saint can become a devil with just a thought. Dustless said indifferently, "I am curious, how will you feel after knowing that your best friend has become a vampire? I really suspect that you are a spy sent by the vampires. Otherwise, why would that vampire thank you after you killed her?" Yuichiro looked at Dustless unkindly. His words made Xiaoya's expression change. Was this guy looking for death? Idiot, don't you understand this? You and that female vampire had the same experience. I thought you could empathize with her. Who knew that you are a retard? Dustless sneered, full of disdain. Yuichiro was so angry that his old face turned black. He said angrily, "What do you mean? Didn't you become a vampire's livestock? In fact, the vampire that was captured alive ended up exactly the same as you did in the past. He was kept alive as a test subject and experienced countless tortures. That's why he thanked me after I killed him. To him, being alive is torture. This is also one of the fundamental reasons why vampires hate humans." Wuxia explained lazily. The captured vampires were all test subjects. They suffered inhuman torture, and were better off dead. He killed the female vampire and ended the miserable test life. The other party was naturally grateful to Wuxia. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2368. You're too naive and ignorant. No wonder you're always being used by others. Thinking about Yuichiro Hayakuya's past, Dustless suddenly lost interest in this guy. He could be called the most tragic protagonist, being used here and there. Even Akemi Hanren, who he trusted the most, did not hesitate to stab him in the back at the last moment. Right, Xiaoya? Dustless suddenly stopped walking. He looked at Xiaoya and said, "I met your father earlier. He asked me to bring you to see him." Father? Xiaoya couldn't help but be stunned. She looked at Dustless in shock and blurted out, "What's the matter?" Xiaoya was actually very unfamiliar with her father, Tai Tianli. "You know, I'm not interested in knowing about your father." Dustless shook his head and looked at Xiaoya meaningfully. He dragged out his tone and said, "Your father? No, you should know what kind of family the Tai family is, right? I personally don't think it's a good thing for your father to suddenly look for you. So, I'm only responsible for passing the message to you. If you're determined to leave, I won't stop you." What kind of family was the Tai family? In Dustless's words, it was rotten to the core. This family didn't have the slightest bit of emotion to speak of. There were only interests in using and being used. After a moment of silence, Xiaoya said resolutely, "I want to meet my father." "Is that so? Then don't regret it. Let's go. That rotten old man called us over. I'm also curious about what kind of rotten idea he has." Tai Tianli was the only one sitting in the dull meeting room. His gaze was deep as he stared at the map. This was a world map. The whole world was in front of him. However, Tai Tianli's gaze was only focused on a small piece of land in Japan. He was old and had no interest in conquering the world and reviving mankind. He only wanted to protect his own power. Knock knock knock. After some time, the door of the meeting room suddenly opened. Dustless and Xiaoya walked in without greeting. We haven't seen each other for a long time. No, it seems like I'm getting old. After looking at Dustless for a while, Yun Tianli discovered with envy that Dustless still looked the same as when they first met. His face hadn't aged at all. The same cold eyes, the same coat, the same temperament, the same. The only difference was that Si Tianli was already old. However, looking at Dustless's young appearance, Yun Tianli did not feel the slightest bit of jealousy. All that remained was pure pride. He was very proud that he had not made an enemy out of Dustless back then. He had only roped him in and they had become friends. Dustless's terrifying strength was the guarantee of Yun Tianli's authority. As long as he could rope in Dustless, he knew that he would be immortal. Xiaoya, you're here. Have a seat. Ran Tianli smiled warmly, dazzling Ran Xiaoya. In her impression, her father had always been cold and harsh. He treated everyone coldly, including a woman like her. Since when did he become so gentle? Ran Xiaoya expressed her confusion. We've known each other for many years. Just say what you want. There's no need to beat around the bush. You know that I don't like to be long-winded, Dustless said impatiently. You're still the same as before. Yun Tianli nodded when he heard this. He was not surprised at all. He glanced at Ran Xiaoya a few more times before saying sternly, I want to betroth Xiaoya to you. The two of you are a match made in heaven. If the two of you get together, wait. Before Yun Tianli could continue, Dustless immediately stood up. He looked at Yun Tianli in shock and picked his ear. Did I hear wrong? You want to betroth Xiaoya to me? Father. Let alone Dustless. Even Ran Xiaoya looked at Yun Tianli in shock. You heard right. Yun Tianli looked into Dustless's eyes and said firmly, after the two of you get together, you will definitely give birth to the most outstanding offspring. My Yun family will also be passed down forever, and will not become a part of history. The latter part is your true motive, right? To let the Yun family pass down forever. Wu Chen looked at Si Tianli, who had a fanatical look in his eyes and ruthlessly dampened his enthusiasm. Nothing can be eternal and immortal. After a long time, everything will decay. You're right, but that's not important to me. Yun Tianli smiled and said seriously, I only cherish what's in front of me. As long as I'm still alive, it'll be fine as long as the Yun family can last forever. Old man, to put it bluntly, this is for your own selfish interests. You're just protecting your rights. Dustless sneered. After working with this old man for a few years, he knew his motive. He didn't have any ambitions and only wanted to protect his rights. As for Ran Xiaoya, she remained silent and didn't have the right to interrupt. However, she felt extremely cold in her heart. She lifted her head and looked at her father. This man was so heartless. In order to protect his rights, he didn't mind giving her away. He didn't even bat an eyelid. Instead of calling her a daughter, she was more like a valuable commodity. However, Ran Xiaoya understood that the Yun family was such a cruel family. For example, the adopted son of the Yun family, Yun Late Night, had Yun Zhenzhou as his fiancée. In order to give birth to outstanding offspring, the Yun family's partners were all giants among men. Dustless was the strongest among the strong. In Yun Tianli's eyes, he was the most suitable stud horse to give birth to the Yun family's next generation. Most importantly, once he had this son-in-law, he wouldn't have to worry about his rights anymore. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2369. What's your answer? Dustless. Si Tianli gazed at Dustless longingly. He was determined to have Dustless. With such a super-nuclear weapon in his hands, no one could threaten him in the future. It wasn't just Ran Tianli. Even Ran Xiaoya couldn't take her eyes off Wu Chen. Although there was a huge age gap between the two, Wu Chen was very special. His appearance wouldn't age. On the surface, he looked like he was in his early 20s. He was extremely young. Secondly, Ran Xiaoya was looking forward to it. Of course, she was also repulsed. It could be said that she was conflicted. Her father had given her away just like that. No matter who it was, they wouldn't be able to accept it. It was worth mentioning that Dustless's legend of invincibility had spread far and wide. Ran Xiaoya was also one of Dustless's admirers. To put it in a more fashionable way, she was a fan. She admired Dustless a lot. About that, Dustless had a headache and was in a difficult position. He really treated Ran Xiaoya as a junior. After all, he watched her grow up and taught her a lot of fighting moves. Wasn't it like an old cow eating young grass if she were to be betrothed to him? Although Dustless didn't think that he was old. If he were to reject Ran Xiaoya, this innocent little girl would definitely be devastated. For a moment, he was in a dilemma and didn't know what to do. We'll talk about it in the future. Xiaoya is too young. Dustless pondered for a moment before giving an ambiguous answer. It was a rejection and an agreement at the same time. No one could guess what he was thinking. Is that so? Since you've decided, I won't interfere. Si Tianli couldn't help but feel disappointed. After working with Dustless for a few years, he knew that he couldn't force him. Chua Xiaoya looked at Dustless. Compared to before, her gaze was rather dim. She looked at Dustless's cold eyes and felt rather bitter inside. When she was mentioned, Dustless's eyes were as calm as still water. Clearly he was not interested in her. Xiaoya, you can leave first. I have something to discuss with Dustless. Waving his hand, Tai Tianli's tone became much colder. That emotionless tone was as if he was talking to an abandoned child. What a cold-blooded old man. Seeing this, Dustless shook his head. After all, this was someone else's family matter, and he had no right to speak. Lan Xiaoya did not say anything, leaving dejectedly. If you have something to say it. Dustless casually sat down and crossed his legs. He glanced at Si Tianli and said, "It's about your son Jimu, right?" "Not bad." Si Tianli's gaze suddenly turned incomparably cold. He said with hatred, "That brat actually did that kind of experiment behind my back. That damn bastard. Is he trying to usurp the throne?" "You know about it?" Dustless wasn't surprised. After all, he was the Emperor Ghost Army's marshal, so he naturally knew about certain things. The Blazing Angel of Termination. Si Tianli took a deep breath and said coldly, "But don't be happy too early. That son of mine is ambitious and wants to replace me. That's something everyone knows. Many people in the Emperor Ghost Army have sided with him, but I've been feigning ignorance and couldn't be bothered to deal with him." "Aren't you worried that he'll kill his father?" Dustless looked into Si Tianli's eyes and said meaningfully, "You don't need me to say it. As long as there's a suitable opportunity, he'll kill you." It sounded crazy, but that was the truth. In this ugly world, anything could happen. Moreover, Jimu was ambitious and wanted to lead the Emperor Ghost Army to rule the world. First of all, Si Tianli, who had no intention of competing for hegemony, was his biggest obstacle. It was only a matter of time before father and son met on the battlefield. Moreover, it was worth mentioning that Si Tianli, this cunning old fart, had guessed correctly. In the original work, Jimu had already planned to kill him and replace him. Don't be happy too early. I understand the grudge between you and Jimu. If I die, do you think he'll let you go?" Si Tianli snorted. His meaning was very simple. He hoped that Dustless would help him. "Of course I know he won't let me go." Dustless didn't deny it and only nodded. Si Tianli suddenly laughed. "The Seraph of Termination. That's something that can destroy the world. Aren't you afraid?" Hearing this, Dustless only looked at Si Tianli quietly, raised 2 fingers and corrected him. "You're wrong about 2 things. Regarding the Seraph of Termination, I know its essence better than you. Secondly, you said I'm afraid? If you can understand it this way, it can only mean that you're too ignorant." The essence of the Seraph of Termination? Si Tianli frowned deeply. Hearing Dustless's words, it seemed that there was more to it. That's right. The essence of the Seraph of Termination isn't to destroy. Dustless's eyes were cold as he said in a deep voice, "The essence of this plan is actually to revive the dead, so it's called a taboo experiment. Do you still remember the huge disaster a few years ago? It's actually because some people touched the taboo and touched the Seraph of Termination, reviving the dead. Because of this, some narrow-minded gods got angry, and this world ushered in the end. There's such a secret. Si Tianli was stunned and felt that his brain wasn't enough to process it. He looked at Dustless without moving. Reviving the dead? Why does it sound like a fairy tale? It sounds unbelievable, but it's the truth. Dustless said with great certainty. As a transmigrator, he was naturally familiar with these secrets. Moreover, the main culprit of the destruction of the world was Ikanes Hanren. He touched the taboo and revived the dead. As a result, the gods got angry, and this world collapsed. The essence of the Seraph Project was the content of a manga. Those who haven't read it can go take a look. It's pretty good. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2370. Can I revive others? Tai Tianli's throat choked. Dustless could clearly feel that this guy's breathing had quickened. He was probably yearning for the end of the Blazing Angel project. Are you hoping that others will revive you after you die? Dustless stared straight at Tai Tianli and said in disdain. Who will revive you? Are you hoping that your son will revive you? Stop dreaming. Tai Tianli was speechless after hearing Dustless's words. Most people wanted him to die, so how could they revive him? Also, you seem to have forgotten the cause and effect. Even if you are really revived, a virus like the one from a few years ago will sweep across the world again. We might have to go through another destruction. What do you think will exist in the world after another destruction? Dustless asked casually, which made Tai Tianli speechless. The world was in a mess now, and the human race could go extinct at any time. If they were to experience another round of destruction, the human race would be completely finished. Moreover, just like what Dustless said, no one would be willing to revive him. Sigh. Tai Tianli let out a long sigh. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He lowered his head like a defeated rooster. Dustless didn't say anything when he saw this. He turned and left. Still here, Dustless saw Ran Xiaoya standing silently just as he walked out. He rubbed the girl's head subconsciously. You don't have to care about what your father said. He is a cold-blooded animal. Not only does he treat you, but he treats your brother and the rest of the Tai family the same way. I know. Ran Xiaoya nodded gently. Let's go. Dustless nodded and didn't say anything. In fact, there wasn't much to say. Xiaoya. Seeing Dustless and Ran Xiaoya, Hayakuya Yuichiro suddenly ran over. Not only him but a few of his companions also ran over. Zaoi Yuichiro Jun Tsukasa. Dustless stared at the two of them. He only took a few more glances and didn't pay attention to them anymore. No matter how great their achievements were in the future, they were nothing now. There was nothing worth thinking about. But this kid. Dustless suddenly looked towards Jun Yuesher's side. He clearly remembered that his sister, Jun Yuesher, had been secretly experimented on by the Emperor Ghost Army. In the end, she had become the Seraph of Termination. You better stay away from Xiaoya. Seeing Dustless and Ran Xiaoya standing there, the protective Yuichiro immediately pulled Ran Xiaoya away. Because of what Dustless had said before, Yuichiro had already labeled him as a dangerous and unreliable person in his heart. Xiaoya is our companion and family, Yuichiro Hayakuya said coldly, feeling an indescribable hatred for Dustless. At the same time, Junyu Shifeng, Zayinu, Ichiya and Yuichiro Hayakuya stood on the same side, secretly protecting Ran Xiaoya. Tsk tisk. Seeing this, Dustless smacked his lips and said with a smile, I remember that you guys never paid attention to teamwork. Why did you guys suddenly change so fast? Is the Red Lotus group yours? But then Dustless suddenly changed the topic and said flatly, you guys are worrying about nothing here, like caring about other people like you. Looking at Jun Yuesher's side, Dustless said sarcastically, maybe she is experiencing great pain now. As an idiot brother, you are still standing here foolishly. Also, don't trust others, including Red Lotus. You guys are just chess pieces. You are sowing discord. Yuichiro Hayakuya retorted. In his heart, he actually trusted Red Lotus. What a hopeless idiot. Dustless was too lazy to continue talking nonsense. He turned around and left. He still had other things to deal with. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2371. After all, Dustless had massacred too many vampires. The nickname Golden Reaper was not for show. It was enough to deter too many vampires. Many of them would even run away after hearing the name Dustless. It was hard to imagine that vampires would fear a human to such an extent. This guy is very strange. You guys should be careful in the future. Looking at Dustless's back, Yuichiro did not dare to be careless. Back then, he and Dustless had escaped from the vampire city together. He had witnessed the terrifying strength of Dustless with his own eyes. In the blink of an eye, he had killed 6 or 7 vampires. His strength was beyond imagination. My sister. Jun Yuzo looked at Dustless's back in a daze. The words spoken by Dustless had affected him greatly. Jun Yuzo, don't listen to that guy's nonsense. How could Red Lotus harm your sister? You're overthinking it. Yuichiro advised. He had 100% trust in Red Lotus. He explained. That guy is just trying to drive a wedge between us. In the vampire city, Dustless was strolling around. He did not bother to hide and appeared calmly in front of the vampires. It was as if he was taking a stroll in the afternoon. Am I seeing things? A human is walking around in front of us? You must be dreaming. Damn human. Are you tired of living? That's not right. This human doesn't look like a domestic animal. Look, he's not wearing a domestic animal uniform. The vampires who saw Dustless were dumbfounded. Since when did a human dare to be so arrogant? He actually dared to walk around in front of them. Did he think that they were all blind? No matter what, let's kill him together. He's just a domestic animal. A few of the patrolling vampires looked at each other and quickly surrounded Dustless. Every one of them was holding a sharp weapon in their hands. Their expressions were ferocious and they revealed their sharp fangs. It was quite scary. It was as if they wanted to swallow Dustless alive. Get out of my way, you bastards. Dustless, who was surrounded, opened his mouth and said slowly, I was invited by your queen. She begged me to give you vampires a way out and not send yourselves to death. Human, have you gone mad? All the vampires snorted disdainfully. How could their queen flirt with Dustless, a human? What invitation? Bullsh**t. Do it, kill him. The few vampires did not waste any more words and all drew their swords to slash at him. If you want to die, then I won't be polite. Dustless pulled out a Juruamaru, and with a light wave, a terrifying black slash swept out. Poochie. 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 Several vampires didn't even have the chance to scream before they were killed in the blink of an eye. It had been a few years since Dustless had obtained a churro pill. He was already able to control it flexibly. He was invincible. He had killed many aristocratic progenitors. Thud 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 thud. Dustless left without the slightest reluctance. Before he came, Klulu had asked Dustless to sneak into the city of vampires secretly. He didn't even think about it and decisively refused. Sneak in like a rat? Not a chance. They were just vampires. As Dustless gradually infiltrated deeper into the heart of the city, more and more vampires discovered him. Seeing a human jumping in front of them, many vampires were enraged. They ran over with swords, wanting to cut Dustless into pieces. A domestic animal suddenly swaggered in front of its master. All the vampires were infuriated, but sadly, the vampires who provoked Dustless were all killed in seconds without exception. Human, stop right there. The brightly lit hall was quite familiar. Dustless had been here before and knew that he wasn't far from Klula's palace. But at this time, a roadblock blocked his way. This person was slightly different from the other vampires. He had blue eyes that shone like gems. His blonde hair was dazzling under the light. It was worth mentioning that this young man looked to be about 16 or 17 years old. He had a calm and steady aura, completely different from the vampires he encountered before. He was much stronger. Of course, this wasn't the most important thing. When Dustless saw him, the image of a blonde young man appeared in his mind. Michael of the 100 Knights? Dustless's lips curled up. He looked at the cold young man and teased. What's so complicated about changing from a human to a vampire? Express your feelings, young man. You know me. Hearing this, 100 Knights Michael's cold little face was obviously stunned. He coldly asked, Human, who are you? This changes really fast. Every time you say human. Didn't you hate vampires in the past? Now that you've become a vampire, your stance has changed? Little brat, your will is really not firm. But it's undeniable that humans are really annoying sometimes. Dustless spoke frankly. Soon after, he asked faintly, Whose blood did you drink to become a vampire? You know, quite a lot. 100 Knights Michael frowned as he looked at Dustless. He felt that the person in front of him was somewhat familiar, but he couldn't remember who he was. Clang. 100 Knights Michael was too lazy to talk nonsense. He unsheathed his sword. After becoming a vampire for a few years, he had completely changed. He started to hate the human race. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 100 Knights Michael turned into a gust of wind and rushed over. The large sword in his hand slashed towards Dustless's head without hesitation. He was full of vigor and didn't show any mercy. Clang, clang, clang. A series of explosions sounded and the blade's attack stopped. Without a doubt, Dustless received the attack. His method was very simple. He directly grabbed Michael's sword. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2372. 100 Knights Michael looked at Dustless in a daze. Those two fingers were like two giant fingers that could reach the sky. They were tightly clamping Michael's sword, forcing him to be unable to move. Damn it! 100 Knights Michael was furious. He pulled out the sword with both hands. The veins on his arms were bulging. He wanted to pull it out and cut this hateful face into pieces. So weak. After dilly-dallying for a long time, 100 Knights Michael still couldn't move Dustless. It seems like the person who turned you into a vampire wasn't Clulu. If you drank her blood, your strength wouldn't be so weak. Let me guess who it is. Dustless stared at 100 Knights Michael's face for a few times. Suddenly, he thought of a man with a wicked taste. He smiled and asked, Is it the seventh ancestor Freed? Bastard. This name seemed to have touched 100 Knights Michael's heartstrings. His face suddenly turned sinister. He raised his right leg and kicked Dustless. You're asking for trouble. Dustless snorted. Looking at the side leg that was flying towards him, he slapped it. Bang! Compared to Dustless, 100 Knights Michael's strength was like a little lamb. He was easily sent flying. He fell more than 10 meters away. His face was red and swollen. You still don't remember who I am? Looking at 100 Knights Michael who was lying on the ground, Dustless said calmly, A few years ago, I walked out of here openly. It was also when 100 Knights Yuichiro escaped from here. It's you. After being reminded by Dustless, 100 Knights Michael suddenly remembered. His eyes were like torches as he looked at Dustless. He asked excitedly, Yuichiro, how are you? Are you injured? That brat. Dustless didn't hide anything and replied bluntly, That brat is a perfect experimental subject. How do you think he will be? You dirty, ugly human. I want you to pay with your life. Hearing this, 100 Knights Michael immediately went berserk. His eyes were bright red and filled with a raging light. His bloodthirsty killing intent was like a wild beast that wanted to devour Dustless. Die. Holding the great sword with both hands, 100 Knights Michael quickly attacked, stabbing towards Dustless's abdomen. Poochie. This ferocious sword pierced through Dustless's abdomen, right in the middle of his heart. However, Michael of the 100 Knights wasn't happy at all. The wound he pierced emitted a faint golden light, but no blood flowed out. Clearly, this move had no effect on Dustless. Brat, do you think that I used that kid as a test subject? Dustless lowered his head to look at the malevolent 100 Knights Michael and said with contempt. In my eyes, no matter what kind of monster he becomes in the future, he's just a little brat that's hard to look at. You're not allowed to talk about Jewel like that. 100 Knights, Michael roared with an ashen face. Compared to before, his anger had weakened a lot. Hearing that Dustless didn't have any intention of doing anything to him, he was slightly relieved. Get lost, don't block my way. Dustless was too lazy to continue talking nonsense with 100 Knights Michael. His body directly brushed past him, and he walked straight into the depths of the corridor. Wait, I haven't allowed you to leave yet. I still want to ask about Jewel. 100 Knights Michael leaped and blocked in front of Dustless like a wall. However, Dustless still didn't care about him and continued to walk away, treating 100 Knights Michael as air. You dare to ignore me? 100 Knights Michael was slightly angry. A mere human dared to look down on him. Unforgivable. Swish, swish, swish. 100 Knights Michael leaped again and blocked in front of Dustless, but this time, he wasn't as lucky as before. Breaking Down level 90. The spiritual pressure in Dustless's body boiled as he glanced at 100 Knights Michael. You're really too much of an eyesore. Black coffin. All of a sudden, a black crescent moon appeared in the void around 100 Knights Michael. It was so sharp that it could easily cut apart a palace. Poochie, poochie, poochie. In an instant, 100 Knights Michael suffered a fatal injury. The black blade penetrated his body and tore his flesh and bones into pieces. A perfectly fine person was cut into 8 pieces in the blink of an eye. This is just a lesson for blocking my way. The next time you dare to block me, it won't be as simple as being cut into 8 pieces. I will definitely not use such a gentle method in the future. Dustless didn't kill him. The vitality and body structure of a vampire were very special. Even if he was cut into pieces, he could still recover as long as someone helped him. In Klulu's palace. That guy really knows how to cause trouble. Klulu crossed her legs and sat lazily on the throne. She tilted her head and looked like she had a headache. Just a moment ago, she received the news of the Golden Reaper, which was Dustless's invasion. She even got rid of a few hundred vampires. Cause trouble for you? This should be the other way around. You suddenly called me over. I always feel that you're causing trouble for me. Above Klulu's head, groups of light gathered and flashed into Dustless's body. He looked at Klulu with a playful gaze and teased, "My cute livestock, why did you call me over?" Livestock. Hearing this, Klulu's face trembled a few times. As the queen of vampires, she was actually called a livestock by Dustless. It was a great humiliation. But sadly, Klulu couldn't beat Dustless. Even if she was unhappy, she could only endure it. You actually. 10,000 celestial attraction. A ferocious gravitational force exploded and Klulu, who was sitting on the throne, was instantly pulled over. Dustless raised his arm and mercilessly slapped her perky buttocks. If I don't hit you for 3 days, you want to climb the roof and destroy the tiles. Have you forgotten what I told you before? When you see me, you have to call me Master. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2373. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you, you bastard. Klulu, who was being held by Dustless, felt a stinging pain coming from her butt. Her face turned red, and at the same time, an unprecedented feeling spread throughout her body, followed by a huge burst of anger. As the queen of the vampires, she was spanked by a human again and again. How could she have any face left? It was even worse than killing Klulu. As the saying goes, a gentleman prefers death to humiliation. However, Dustless didn't buy it. He used such a crazy method to trample on Klulu's dignity. She was about to go crazy. You still dare to stare at me? Lowering his head, he found that Klulu was staring at him with eyes that wanted to eat him alive. Dustless smiled and said, "Well, it seems that you like to play more interesting and exciting things. Klulu, why don't we change the pattern, tie you to a telephone pole, take off your clothes and find dozens of..." "Enough, I was wrong, okay?" Dustless was so shameless that Krulu could only lower her head like a loser admitting defeat. She was extremely unwilling to accept this and respectfully called out, "Master." "That's more like it." Dustless smiled proudly and let go of Krulu. He lazily sat on her throne and took out a bottle of wine and a wine glass from nowhere. He ordered Krulu arrogantly, "Fill it to the brim." "This bastard wants me to pour wine? Too arrogant." Krulu exploded in anger. She was about to reject Dustless, but she saw him looking at her with a smile. Her body suddenly trembled. Even if she was unhappy, she could only follow Dustless's order. The red liquid was poured into the golden wine cup. The fragrance assailed the nostrils. Wuxia picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp. Then he asked unhurriedly, "My little livestock, why did you call your master? Are you going to deal with the humans? That's good. I've been annoyed with those idiots for a long time." "You are also a human, right? Don't you have any sympathy? How can you watch your own race being destroyed without doing anything?" Krulu rolled his eyes and cursed speechlessly. The human race was about to be destroyed. Why was this guy still gloating? "Little girl, your knowledge is too shallow." Dustless leaned lazily on the throne and said carelessly, "My own race? Since when were those humans my race? Just because I'm human? This logic is really unflattering." "Do what you need to do. I won't interfere," Dustless said indifferently. Then his body turned into a photon and a large amount of light floated out. It seemed like he was about to leave. "Don't worry, I still have something to say," Kelulu shouted to stop him. The light floating around Dustless's body slowly receded, and his body that was about to disappear reappeared. "Don't you want to ask what kind of relationship I have with Ise's Korea?" Seeing Dustless's casual attitude, as if he didn't care about anything, Kelulu was a little unhappy. "What's wrong with this guy? Isn't he afraid that I'll harm him? This has something to do with me?" Dustless looked at Kelulu with an indifferent expression and said very simply, "In the end, it's just you playing a boring game with a few cats and dogs. You don't have to care about my feelings, just do what you need to do." "Aren't you saying it too simply?" Kelulu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The plan she was talking about was the end of the Blazing Angel project. But when it came to Dustless, it became a boring game. That is something that can destroy the world. With a straight face, Kelulu looked at Dustless seriously. "Furthermore, the world might collapse again if you don't do it right. Aren't you afraid?" "What does it have to do with me?" Dustless couldn't be bothered to listen to Kelulu's nagging and interrupted her. His eyes were filled with endless light. "What does the life and death of the world have to do with me?" He wasn't the God that Christians believed in. He wasn't great enough to love the world, nor was he the Buddha in the eyes of Buddhists. How boring would it be to save the world? Dustless wouldn't do it. "You and Ise's Korea are working together, right?" After a moment of silence, Dustless suddenly said, "You shouldn't say it like that. Let's be more specific. You and Red Lotus's girlfriend, Kasumi Hiru, are in a cooperative relationship. But that guy seems to have become a ghost. Now he seems to be lodging in Ike's Red Lotus's ghost curse weapon." "You even know this?" Kelula's mouth opened wide in shock. She looked at Dustless in disbelief. Her heart felt like it was going through a storm and couldn't calm down for a long time. Looking at his clear eyes, she suddenly felt scared. This kind of secret cooperation was only known by 3 people. Kelulu herself, Ise's Korea herself, and Ise's Korea. Where did Dustless get this information? Who do you want to resurrect with that kind of thing? Dustless stared at Kelulu and said bluntly, "The essence of the end of the Blazing Angel project is to resurrect the dead. You want to resurrect someone in order to destroy the world? To be honest, I am very curious." Kelulu was silent. She didn't know how to face Dustless. This guy was too mysterious. Dustless knew all the secrets that should be known by heaven and earth. "Anyway, I am bored. Let me guess." Dustless closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time. Kelulu also looked over and curiously looked at Dustless. She really didn't know where this guy got the ability to predict the future. "You want to resurrect Yashira Tsupersi, right?" "No, that was his name 1,000 years ago. Now that he has turned into a ghost, his name is Ajiramaru." Wuxia said with a smile. His tone was light, but this short sentence made Kalulu very tired. His whole body was in a bad state. Are you really human? Kalula's beautiful eyes widened several times. She looked at Dustless's naughty smile, and then realized something. She quickly changed her words. It is Master. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2374. At this moment, Krulu felt like dying. The high and mighty vampire queen was actually forced into such a sorry state by a human. She even had to address a human as her master. The reputation of the vampires was completely lost by her. It was worth mentioning that Krulu was the third ancestor of the vampires, a true noble. But then again, where did this guy find out about these secrets? Did Akira Ikase tell him? That's impossible. Akira Ikase doesn't even know about my brother's matters. This is too strange. Her beautiful eyes stared at Dustless without moving. Krulu found that she couldn't see through Dustless anymore. This guy was full of secrets. The more she looked at him, the more she couldn't help but fall in love with him. Ah! If you stare at me like that, I'll feel embarrassed. Dustless's annoying voice fell into Krulu's ears. I know that I'm ridiculously handsome. It's normal for you to fall in love with me. But no matter what, you're still the vampire queen. Little brat, you need to be more reserved. Krulu's pretty face turned black. She was furious. Can't this guy be more serious? But there's one thing I need to remind you. Dustless looked at Krulu and warned. You also know that I'm the general of the Emperor Ghost Army. I know better than you what kind of person Akira Ikase is. Cooperating with her is tantamount to asking a tiger for its skin. Don't get bitten in the back. Moreover, you are the queen of the vampires. If those nobles find out. No, it seems that they already know that Fried knows that you are keeping the Seraph of Termination in captivity. Dustless warned earnestly. That Fried was not a good person. Don't worry. I've already taught him a lesson. That guy won't dare to talk nonsense unless he doesn't want to live anymore. Krulu sneered. You think too highly of yourself. At the same time, you've also underestimated that man. Dustless shook his head and explained. Do you understand? A poisonous snake will only release its precious venom when it's sure that it has its prey. And Dustless suddenly took out his ghost-cursed weapon. The green blade made the weapon look very nice. This is my ghost-cursed weapon. Do you know what it's called? When Krulu heard this, his gaze was also drawn over. When he saw the straight saber, for some reason his emotions trembled. He felt a strange sense of nostalgia. Looking at Krulu's expression, Dustless faintly smiled and explained. His name is Ajiramaru. Ah, you Jun who beat you up like this? On the other side, Fried also discovered that 100 Knights Michael's body had been chopped into 8 pieces. His body had been cut into several pieces. Fortunately, the person who chopped him up didn't kill him, so his body could still be pieced back together. You. 100 Knights Michael opened his eyes and looked at Fried's bewitching face. He was extremely conflicted. Without a doubt, Fried had killed all of his family members apart from Yuichiro Hayakuya. Originally, both sides were irreconcilable enemies, but because of Fried, Roland had become a vampire. Although Fried had only used Roland, in a way, Fried had saved Roland's life. Therefore, every time he saw Fried, 100 Knights Michael felt extremely helpless. I'm curious. What kind of person beat you up like this? In this city of vampires, it seems that only Krulu can do this. How did you offend him? Fried put 100 Knights Michael's body back together, blinked his eyes, and asked curiously. It's not him. 100 Knights Michael's face was gloomy. He opened his mouth and spat out a person that made Fried's expression change drastically. It's Dustless, the guy with the nickname, Golden Reaper. So it's him. Hearing this, Fried's careless face suddenly froze. Obviously, he was also extremely apprehensive of Dustless. Don't say too much about this matter. Only the two of us can understand. Why? 100 Knights Michael frowned and said in a deep voice. If we tell the other upper ancestors, there will definitely be someone stronger to deal with Dustless. Even Krulu will be killed. That guy has an inextricable relationship with Krulu. Haven't you always wanted the ruling power of Japan? You're right. Fried nodded undeniably. He liked Krulu's power. However, before this, you seem to have forgotten an important matter, Michael. Important matter? Hearing this, 100 Nights Michael was rather confused. He didn't understand what this guy was talking about. No matter how wonderful something is, you have to be alive to enjoy it. Do you think that the two of us can still live after offending Krulu? Moreover, that guy has an even more terrifying general of the Emperor Ghost Army behind him. His strength is far beyond Krulu's. Speaking of this, Fried broke out in cold sweat. His face was filled with apprehension. The scene of him being crushed by Dustless back then was unforgettable. It was just a glance, but it was like a startled swan that scared him to the point that he lost all his fighting strength. It might be laughable to say that the dignified seventh ancestor was so frightened by a mere human that he almost peed his pants. However, this was the undeniable truth. That was why Fried had been obedient all these years. He knew that Dustless and Krulu had some kind of relationship, but he didn't dare to announce it. Perhaps if he announced it, Krulu would be finished. However, he would definitely end up in a worse state than Krulu. Looking at Fried's solemn expression, Michael of 100 Nights couldn't help but feel curious. Just what kind of encounter did Fried experience to frighten him to such an extent? He didn't dare to cross the line. This wasn't like him at all. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2375. Michael couldn't help but stare blankly at Fried in front of him. He was scared out of his wits by Dustless. Dustless was like a nightmare to him. The calm and confident Fried in the past seemed to be an act. And now, this timid Fried had refreshed Michael's understanding of him as if this was the real him. All in all, you can provoke anyone, but provoking Dustless is the same as courting death. Fried emphasized, warning Michael not to act rashly. He knew how terrifying Dustless was. Not to mention Michael, even Krulu, as the third ancestor, didn't dare to challenge Dustless. In fact, she was even humble in front of Dustless. Could it be? Suddenly recalling something, Fried asked in a deep voice, "Did you offend that guy? That's why he cut you into 8 pieces?" "That's right. I did provoke him." Michael nodded slightly. "You've misunderstood." Fried shook his head. He didn't mean to hurt Michael's feelings. "If you really provoked him, I can tell you clearly that all the vampires in this city will be buried with you." At the same time, time passed quickly. Dustless and Krulu were in dead silence. "You tamed this cursed weapon?" Krulu's expression was extremely complicated. She stared at the green saber in front of her. No wonder she felt an inexplicable connection with it. It turned out that this was Ajurumaru, her elder brother. "He's already a ghost now." Dustless added, "You should know what a ghost is, right? When vampires are deprived of blood, they will degenerate into ghosts. Your elder brother is such an existence now. In a sense, he isn't dead." Krulu didn't deny it. She just stood there quietly. Dustless's words were too big, and she needed time to digest them. "Actually, you don't have anything to worry about. Besides, it's useless for you to worry." Dustless continued, "This is fate. Your elder brother was turned into a vampire, and from a vampire he became a ghost. Only when he came to me can he be at peace." It was worth mentioning that many vampires were originally humans. For example, Michael turned into a vampire after drinking the blood of other vampires. Some ancestor vampires were also humans at first, but after drinking the blood of superior vampires, they evolved into vampires. In short, I've said all that needs to be said. What you do next is up to you," Dustless explained casually. "But be careful of Akira's Akira." No matter what kind of secret plan Krulu and Ike's Red Lotus had, Dustless was too lazy to poke his nose into it. As long as it didn't hinder him, he was fine with it. He just wanted to live a carefree life. Those words just now could be considered as a warning to Cruelu. After leaving Clulu, Dustless didn't rush back to the King Ghost Army's territory. Instead, he wandered around the ruined city with nothing to do. Ever since the large-scale destruction of the human race, the once bustling cities had now become rotting scrap metal. There were abandoned buildings everywhere, dilapidated beyond repair. What a killjoy! Dustless shook his head slightly. His heart couldn't help but feel empty. It seemed like he was the only one in this huge city. Even if there were people, they were the vampires and John's 4 horsemen. It was worth mentioning that John's 4 horsemen seemed to have been cursed by God. They didn't attack vampires but humans instead. Boom boom boom. At that moment, a building not far away suddenly collapsed. Dustless frowned. He could vaguely hear a clang 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 sound. After living in this world for many years, Dustless knew that it was the sound of weapons scraping against each other. Interesting. Anyway, he had nothing to do. Out of curiosity, Wuxia strode over. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! In an underground ruin, several members of the King Ghost Army were surrounded. This group of people looked quite miserable. Some of them were sweating profusely. Looking carefully, they were surrounded by vampires. They were like turtles in a jar. Dustless recognized these people. They were Ran Xiaoya's team. You bastard! I told you not to save people so easily. Why didn't you listen to my orders? The blonde girl with a ponytail asked angrily. She was called Mitsuya. She was scolding Hayakuya Yuichiro angrily. Just now their team had saved a little girl. Because of that, they were surrounded. The little girl had lied. There were supposed to be 7 vampires, but she said there were 6. As a result, Ran Xiaoya's team was surrounded. It's useless for you to say anything now. We're surrounded, Hayakuya Yuichiro said with a straight face. He looked at Mitsuya fearlessly. What he meant was, do whatever you want. It's too late. You bastard. Mitsuya was so angry that she couldn't speak. She glared at Hayakuya Yuichiro. If it weren't for the fact that they were surrounded by strong enemies, she really wanted to beat this dumb kid up. During this time, Mitsuya objected to saving the little girl. She wasn't a new recruit like Hayakuya Yuichiro. She knew that this could be a trap set by the vampires. She tried to stop him, but Hayakuya Yuichiro refused to listen. He decisively led everyone into the trap. As a result, they were now in such a difficult situation. They were a team of 5, but there were 7 vampires. They were at a disadvantage. As for the other members, Jun Tsukasa Shifeng, Zhao Yuichi, and the team leader, Ran Xiaoya, they were all frowning. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2376. From the perspective of teamwork, Hayakuya Yuichiro's actions were reckless. He did not care about the safety of his teammates and put the whole team in a difficult situation. This was a big taboo. However, from the perspective of human nature, Hayakuya Yuichiro did not do anything wrong. Humans are not plants. How can they be heartless? Moreover, as a member of the Emperor's Ghost Army, how can they watch the vampires kill their comrades without doing anything? Obviously, this was impossible. No one could accept it. Therefore, Sasuya Yuichiro did not blame Hayakuya Yuichiro. It was understandable. He was just a little impulsive. Yuichiro and Miyoshi, now is not the time to quarrel. We might be annihilated by this group of vampires at any time. So please stop. Sasuya Yuichiro advised, but her eyes were looking at the vampires to prevent them from launching a sneak attack. Just domestic animals. You have guts. You dare to fight among yourselves when you are about to die. Are you looking down on us? The vampires surrounding Sasuya Yuichiro and the others mocked them. They looked at Sasuya Yuichiro and the others with disdain. Humans will always be humans. Stupid and ignorant. At this time, you still dare to fight among yourselves. Your dirty nature is disgusting. What did you say? Hearing this, Hayakuya Yuichiro was furious. He looked at the vampire angrily and unsheathed the long sword in his hand. Clang. A dark green blade appeared, revealing its sharpness. Just looking at it would cause one's eyes to hurt. It was not difficult to see that this was definitely a divine weapon. Even if Ajiramuru was taken away by Dustless, Hyakuya Yuichiro still got a good Black Ghost series Ghost Curse weapon. Go to hell, damn vampire. Staring at the vampire's face, Yuichiro Hyakuya roared. Holding the sword with both hands, he leaped forward and chopped at the hateful face. Every time Hyakuya Yuichiro saw a vampire, he could not help but think of his dead family members. Especially the face of Hyakuya Michael, which appeared in his mind and tormented him. Haha. Idiot, you fell for it. Seeing Yuichiro pouncing on another vampire, the rest of the vampires' faces lit up. They looked at Yuichiro mockingly. This kid was really an idiot. He couldn't be provoked at all. Idiot, excellent, come back quickly, there's a flaw in our formation. Seeing that Yuichiro Hyakuya was like a ferocious tiger coming out of its cage, and pouncing over with unstoppable momentum, Sasuke Xiaoya's pretty face was covered with dark clouds. She hurriedly reprimanded Yuichiro Hyakuya to come back and maintain the formation. The Moon Ghost unit of the Emperor Ghost Army was usually a team of 5. They formed a special formation that could both attack and defend. In a dangerous situation, their chances of survival would also increase. However, if one person was missing, they would be full of openings. This is our chance. Let's go. These vampires seemed to be quite familiar with the Moon Phantoms. When they discovered a flaw in the formation, they immediately launched a fierce attack. Clang, clang, clang. This group of vampires was quite smart. They waved their swords and slashed at Sasuke and the rest. The situation instantly became chaotic. After all, these people were just children. Moreover, they were all new recruits. They were definitely not as good as these experienced vampires. Although they were quite strong, they had already been separated. It was no different from a fool's dream to continue maintaining the team. Moreover, the vampires had an obvious advantage in terms of numbers. Other than that, they also had a large number of captive humans. At the crucial moment, they could use them as hostages. No matter how one looked at it, Sasuke's team did not have an advantage. Bang, bang, bang. At the same time, Yuichiro Hyakuya was also fighting with a vampire. This kid's strength was indeed extraordinary. He was able to suppress the vampire to a miserable state. Every time he swung his sword, the vampire would be forced to retreat. This damned monster. Why is he so strong? Is he really a child? The vampire who was being suppressed was aghast. To be suppressed by a child, he felt that he had lost all his face. To him, it was a great humiliation, but he was powerless to fight back. Go to hell. Yuichiro Hyakuya's eyes were red. He was enjoying the pleasure of trampling on the vampire. He raised his right arm and waved his sword fiercely. The strength was as strong as the giant clan. One had to admit that although hatred was a negative side, it was sometimes a good thing. At least, it had become the motivation for Yuichiro Hyakuya to become stronger. Bang, ka ka ka. The vampire immediately used his sword to block Yuichiro Hyakuya's attack. Although he managed to block the destruction of the sword, his weapon was also broken. It was enough to show how strong Yuichiro Hyakuya was. Damned monster. The vampire suddenly had an idea. Looking at the imprisoned humans around him, a sinister smile appeared on his face. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Without saying a word, the vampire turned into a shadow and grabbed the throat of a child at lightning speed. He threatened Yuichiro Hyakuya. Put down your weapon, or I will kill him. Despicable. Are all vampires trash like you? You can't beat me, so you use others to threaten me. Shameless. Yuichiro Hyakuya cursed. He had never seen such a shameless person. Are you going to put it down or not? And your companions? The vampire didn't care. He smiled arrogantly and said proudly, all of you, put down your weapons. Otherwise, we will kill this group of livestock. Your mission will be considered a failure. I have never seen such a shameless person. Yuichiro Hyakuya and the others were furious. The vampire was indeed extremely sinister. This is interesting. How are you going to choose? On the top of the ruined building, Dustless looked at the few people fighting on the ground. He gradually became interested. He really wanted to see what kind of decision Yuichiro Hayakuya would make. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.